bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right. Good evening. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today's Monday, January 16th. 16 days into the new year, just 349 days left, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What's cracking, everybody? How you doing? It's Monday. Got a crazy week ahead of us. Great lineup of shows. Just came off of a pretty busy weekend over at Coast to Coast and a busy week last week. And like I just tweeted earlier, no rest for the wicked. But that's what it is, and you have to love it. In a great mood, it is Monday. With that, tonight, Mike Bara is here. Mike Bara is here. We're going to talk about his new book, Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. That's right. And, you know, with Bara, the conversation's going to go wherever it goes, but I'll try to keep it focused tonight. Yeah. Tomorrow night, we're broadcasting live from the Beverly Garland Hotel right here in Los Angeles, California, with UPARS. And our guest tomorrow night will be Jason Martell. The show is going to sell out. Get over there early and get your tickets. It's going to pack out, and I cannot wait to go with Rita and head over there and hang out with all of you Fadernauts and UPARS and Jason and Taylor. It's going to be great. So that's going on tomorrow night right here in Los Angeles. And if you need directions, you need information, you can go to our website. You can also go to our Facebook page. Everything is up there and posted, everything that you need to know. Okay, so that's taking place tomorrow night. We love broadcasting live in front of an audience. It is so much fun. Remember, whether I'm here in the bunker or I'm over at Coast, I'm always alone in a studio with no windows. It's just you and I in the darkness, right? That's what goes on. And it's a totally different vibe, man, when you get in front of a studio audience. It is so much fun. And we'll videotape tomorrow night, and there'll be, I'm sure there'll be DVDs available at the end of the night immediately. So there you go. You know, just come and hang out with us. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then Wednesday night this week, we have Daniel Brinkley, one of our favorite guests, and he is going to be here on Wednesday night. Really looking forward to that. He's one of the coolest guys that I know. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom, but we also have Mr. Sebastian Martin back with us to finish up that dynamic show that we did last Wednesday. Sebastian had so much to say, and I was... at the end of the night, we did a full 2.5 hours with Sebastian. That I had a whole list of questions left. There was things coming in. So we decided to bring him back on Thursday on Fader night so we could take phone calls too as well and finish up that conversation that we had. Okay, so that's That's our week here on Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple enough. Facebook, YouTube, everything is Fade to Black. Just go over to the website, click on those three little icons. They're right there. Follow, like, and subscribe. You can email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. I try to get to as much email as I can. If you have any questions, comments during the show tonight, Twitter is where you do it. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black Questions. Everything else, the sandbox, is hashtag F2B. All right, let's get this show cracking. Fired up, man. What a great week we've got in front of us. But today, astronaut Gene Cernan, the last man to walk on the moon, died today. He was 82. And I went to go and check, and I was kind of bummed about it. You know, Gene was pretty cool, but anyway, I went to look how many astronauts are left with us. Of course, there's Buzz. I started to think, man, I don't know. So when we get Mike Bara on the show, I stopped looking. I was just kind of bummed about the whole thing. So we'll ask Mike. Twitter's probably going to pop up with it here in just a second. How many astronauts are live from the Apollo program? Who's left? Who is left? Also, 10 minutes before the show tonight, got a phone call from Larry Haber, the John Teeter family attorney, and, well, a couple of things really quick. He said hello to the Fadernauts and to have a fun show tonight. He is back. He was out of country. He is back and would like to come on the show and have a chat with everybody. So we're going to do that sometime early next week, Monday, Tuesday next week. We're going to bring Larry Haber on. And there's some other things going on out there right now with John Teeter. And so and we need to get this stuff out there. So I'll save that for Larry. But he does say hi to everybody, and we'll have him on Monday, Tuesday next week. All right. Subscribe to our podcast. I went and was working on some stuff over the weekend with the podcast, and I just realized, it just kind of hit me. And Rita goes, okay, so how many shows do we have up now? Where are we at? Well, today officially is broadcast number 590. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, right? 590. We've got up on YouTube, I think the official count is like 618 videos on YouTube. Some shows were split in half in the early days. We did part 1, part 2, part 3, and then we did a couple of other one-off videos here and there, the Malibu base and what was it? Oh, the Area 51 caller. That was a special video. So we've got over 618 or something like that on YouTube. But subscribe to our podcast. We have 600 archived shows. Custom apps for Apple and Android, all platforms. Everything is there. All the apps are free. You can just go and download them. And you get everything for just $2 a month. And it helps us support the show. All right, so just go. We update it every single day right after the live broadcast. This is the thing. You just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner, and go and do it. This is the thing. This is a live show. It's a live show. And we have live interaction. We have phone calls. We have Twitter. We have the chat rooms. We have interaction and email because the show is live. We encourage everybody to be here for the live show. And it's free, and it's broadcast out on so many different networks for free, right? That's what this show is about. And the podcast is there for those that can't make the live show. It doesn't fit their schedule. They're somewhere else around the world or across the United States. They're in bed. They got to work in the morning. But the first thing that they want to do when they get up is download the podcast so they can listen to it while they go to work. And I get that. We understand that. That's why it's only $2 a month. It's just there for you that need the convenience of the podcast. So it does help support the show. All right? $2 a month. $2. I want my $2. Man, I love that movie. All right. Let's go. Let's get this show cracking. All right. Where are we at? Happy birthday. Let's get these birthdays out of the way. We've got some cool ones here today. I do the birthdays, everybody. I never listened to the show. And over the weekend, I was working and here in the bunker. I was over at Coast, but I was here prepping for Coast. And I happened to let one of the shows run in the background. And I was just kind of listening to it. And the birthday section rolled around, and it was kind of weird to me. And the reason why I do I don't do athletes, or I don't do this, or, whatever. I don't. I do birthdays for people that I think are cool and have affected me. That's why they're there. It's just, there's only one or two. Sometimes there's five. But they're special to me in my life. And today is no exception. So I'm going to say it. Happy birthday to James May. Today he is 54. He's one of the three on Top Gear. Now it's Gran Turismo. And I just think he's a whack guy. Loved Top Gear. Loved it. I've watched a couple of episodes of Gran Turismo. Yes, it is Top Gear Part 2. I get that. I just don't have the time to watch it like I used to, but I love Top Gear. All right, so happy birthday to James May. And also today, director James Carpenter, 69. And he's one of those directors, and especially for us in our circle, that has meant so much to us. The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Halloween, Escape from New York, Snake, Christine. How about Christine? The Fog, great. Ghost of Mars was awesome. Starman. Starman's one of the great movies ever. But that's not even it. He did They Live, one of the greatest documentaries of all time. John Carpenter, today, 69. He's also a great musician. Done a lot of soundtracks. He did the Halloween. That music, that's John Carpenter, in case you didn't know it. On this day in history, in 1991, the Persian Gulf War begins. That's right, 26 years ago today, and we're still there. Fate or fact. Al Pacino, this is a fact. Write this down. Check this out. Al Pacino was offered the role of Han Solo. Yeah, but he turned it down because he didn't understand the script. He also turned down lead roles in Die Hard, Pretty Woman, Beverly Hills Cop, and Apocalypse Now. That's a fate or fact. There you go, Al Pacino. All right. I want to have a little conversation with you about a couple of things. Today, is it really A.J. Foyt's birthday today? Shut up. I didn't know that. Well, I don't. Really? It's going to get a retweet. Man, I didn't know it was A.J. Foyt's birthday. Look at Foyt. That's what I'm talking about. That's my driver right there. When I was a kid, A.J. Foyt was it, the coyote. Man, I'll bring Mike Bara on here, and we'll debate how cool the Coyote Foyt team was. Ford V8, Coyote Orange, Gilmore. That's what I'm talking about. Well, okay, in case you didn't know, I'm going to give you this news right now, and we're going to have a little chat about this. And then where my mind went today, where did it go? Well, the state of North Dakota is tripping out right now. And I'm shocked over the bills that were introduced by lawmakers that would criminalize road protest, restrict what protesters can wear, apparently, and allow the federal government to be sued to cover enforcement costs. Now, among the bills, one would exempt drivers from liability if they unintentionally, listen to this, if they unintentionally injure or kill a pedestrian obstructing traffic on a public road or highway. So, in effect here, especially if this passes, in effect, anyone can mow down or run over or hit a protester without being charged with anything. Now, how strange is that? Using the excuse of, and you fill in the blanks, right? I didn't intend to do it. I was just late for work, and he was out there with a sign, and I just hit the guy. But I had to get to work. No charges. Right? Think about that for a second. Does that even sound right? Think about that for a second. Well, Representative Keith Kempenich crafted the driver exemption bill after his 72-year-old mother-in-law was blocked by protesters waving signs on a roadway. And he wants his mother-in-law to have the right to run them over. I'm not making this up. To give him the benefit of the doubt here, it's his mother-in-law, and I'm sure that his wife had something to do with this. But talking about the bill specifically, Kempenich said this about the protesters, and I'm quoting here. They're intentionally putting themselves in danger, end quote. In other words, they're doing it to themselves. We have the right to run them over. Right? Another bill would make it a crime for an adult to wear face masks. Right. During a protest. An adult. Say what? Here? What's going on? Wasn't it, let's back up the time machine. Wasn't it freezing cold? Wasn't it freezing cold? Wasn't it like Arctic weather? Wasn't it, snowing and if my memory serves, weren't they getting sprayed by water cannons? Right? But they don't have the right to cover their faces? Now, there's another side to this, and I'm sure that we're all thinking the same thing. Are they trying to they want in the future to have the ability to use facial recognition to identify the protesters, right? So they can go after them later, maybe publicly humiliate them or find out their identity or where they live or get the IRS involved, right? That's what I'm thinking. Thinking Big Brother. Because it was freezing cold and they were getting sprayed by water cannons and it's windy and you have the right to protect your face. I know that when I walked to school when I was a kid in Indianapolis or in Michigan or in Chicago, you had to wear a ski mask to make it to school. You'd be frostbit. But apparently, right? It just doesn't sit right with me. There's another motive going on here. And I think a lot of it is retribution. You know, it's like payback, and they're trying to get back at these protesters for winning. I mean, were the face masks scary? Were they intimidating people? Were the people freaking out? Were they scared? Ooh, right? What do you mean you don't have the right to wear a face mask in the freezing cold? You can buy them at Sports Mart, right? Bass Pro Shops, but you can't wear them on the street if you're in a protest. And not only you can't wear a face mask, but apparently the drivers want to see your naked face before they run you down in their cars, right? Is that what's going on in North Dakota? I'm just saying something feels funky. And I know that the good people of North Dakota aren't behind this. They're listening to me right now. They're going, hey, man, that's not what we're about. I understand that. But the legislators up there right now are trying to push this through. State lawmakers are saying now that the bills introduced last week were motivated by residents' frustration with the ongoing protest in the southern part of the state, which at times saw 1,000 people opposing this building of the pipeline. And it's the people. It's the people of the state of North Dakota that want this. I'm not buying into that. No, I'm not. I'm sure the bills are motivated because big corp and big money lost the fight. That's what's really going on here. And I'm sure that if we look at who is behind Kempenich and North Dakota's largely oil-friendly legislature, you'll find the real reason for trying to push all of this stuff into law is Energy Transfer Partners. I'm going on the record here. Another bill would require the state attorney general to sue the federal government to help cover some of the more than $22 million that they spent in law enforcement costs that they incurred. There have been nearly 600 arrests in the region since August. They're saying, man, we've got to pay for, the prisons and we've got to recover this. You know what? You did this to yourselves. The bills were also drafted without consultation with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, and that's not right. The proposed legislation comes over a month after the United States Army Corps of Engineers denied Energy Transfer Partners. Let's not make a mistake about this. The Dallas-based company funding the pipeline project, and that permit to cross the Missouri River was denied. The bill will be heard by the North Dakota House Transportation Committee this Friday. See, here's the thing. If the protest didn't happen, the pipeline would have gone through. The issues that the Army Corps of Engineers brought up and ultimately denied the permits with would have never been heard. These questions about the environment would have never been brought up. And that's what protesting is for. And so while thinking about this today, I thought about something else, which kind of started to trip me out, which was the environment in general. You know, we need to stop and think about what is going on in this country, because since the Industrial Revolution, since World War II, the inventions that we've done here, the progress that we have done in our communities has been immense. Suburbia, you know, the nuclear families, you know, all of those soldiers, the military coming back after World War II and getting jobs and the GI Bill and going to college and having kids and raising a family and money to spend. The economy was booming. And we ignored what was going on around this country because it was a good time and we didn't look at the future. And I started to trip on this, and it's all tied right back to what the problems with the pipeline. And then my mind started to wander. And I thought about this. Think about this for a second. How many old CRT tube, picture tube, old school televisions have been sold with that nuclear family and the college and the GI Bill and the money and everything else, right? How many of those have been sold and were in the United States since the 40s and 50s until now? So I just went and did some math. Number of housing units in the United States. Housing units, apartments, and single-family homes. How many? Well, are you ready? 134 million. Number of businesses with office space and 10-plus employees? 10,139,000. And I included that number because most of those offices have a TV in it, right? So there's an additional 10 million television sets. Now, in 1960, we had an estimated 52 million televisions in households. 52 million in 1960. 1965, 100 million. 1970, 200 million. By the year 2000, 280 million television sets in the United States active. The old CRT tube ones, flat screens, came out in 2000. So think about what I'm saying here. 280 million. Now, if we just take a stab at an average number here of the total amount of CRTs, old school TVs, that were sold in the U.S. through the year 2000 for households and businesses, a conservative number, as I put everything together and I researched this completely, is over 1 billion televisions. Old school tube televisions, not flat screens. 1 billion. That's with a B. Now, stacked up end to end, it would stretch from the Earth to the moon and back to the moon. That's how many television just in the United States. That's a huge pile of electronic junk. Plastics, metals, heavy metals, glass, gases, chemicals. And if you really think about it, now, today, all totally wasted. Some were recycled for sure, but the rest in the garbage, in a landfill somewhere. And think about all of the resources that were extracted from the earth to build them. Copper, gold, petroleum for the plastics, and the oil and gas used to ship them to the store near you. The trees that were used up for the boxes, the styrofoam inside. Just one huge titanic waste of everything because they're all gone. And at the same time, we don't consider what it would end up doing to our world. every couple of years, we went out as Americans and bought 3 for the house. Threw the old ones in the trash and bought 3 more. That's what we did. Complete waste. And what is equally crazy, if you stop and think about the pile of televisions that are wasted in landfills and polluting the environment and the chemicals seeping into the ground and what is involved there. But we don't care, right? We're Americans. Let's buy another one. Throw it away. It doesn't work. Remote doesn't work. Throw it away. We'll just go buy another one. It's easier, cheaper than having it repaired. Remember the hi-fi stores that were on every corner in every mall, selling those stereos, those receivers, amps, cassette decks, equalizers, reel-to-reels, and the biggest speakers you have ever seen? Remember those days? Think about this for a second. Well, those stores are gone. And with those stores are those sales guys. Nothing like a stereo store sales guy, right? But where are the billion stereo systems? Where are they? When was the last time you went to someone's house and you heard, your friend go, "Hey, dude, man, come here. Check out my new Techniques equalizer." Remember those days? Well, let's do the math. Nah, just kidding. I just did. Just the massive 15-inch, 5-way, 50-pound monolith. Do you remember those speakers? The 15-inch, right? Pioneer. Remember those days? 50-pound monoliths. Just those. If we took those speakers and stacked those up end to end, yeah, it'd probably stretch to the moon and back. Those equalizers would probably get you to Mars. And right now, they are all sitting next to a TV in a landfill near you. And that's what I'm talking about. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Today's Monday. Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, the one and only Mike Bara. We're going to do Hidden Agenda and the NASA and the Secret Space Program, his latest book. It's going to be one of those conversations with Mike. So buckle up, get ready, get comfortable, burn a heater, go Beckley Teppy. Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back with Bara right after this.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. This portion of Fade to Black is brought to you by Life Change Tea. Just go to Life Change Tea's banner right now over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. It'll take you to GetTheTea.com. Just mention Jimmy when you order, either over the phone or online, and you're going to get free shipping. Life Change Tea. All right, let's do this. Mike Bara is a New York Times bestselling author, lecturer, and TV personality. He began his writing career after spending more than 25 years as an engineering consultant for major aerospace companies, where he was a card-carrying member of the military-industrial complex. A self-described born-again conspiracy theorist, Mike's first book, Dark Mission, The Secret His first book, Dark Mission, The Secret History of NASA, co-authored with Richard C. Hoagland, was a New York Times bestseller back in 2007, still selling. His second book, The Choice, published back in 2010. 2012, he published Ancient Aliens on the Moon from Adventures Unlimited Press. In 2013, he returned with Ancient Aliens on Mars, a new book from Adventures Unlimited Press, which will look at the hidden history of Mars and the vast ancient civilization which once flourished there. His latest book is Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. It was released back in November. You can get that over at Amazon.com. Of course, he is a regular contributor to History Channel programs like Ancient Aliens, America's Book of Secrets, and, of course, our very own top secret new series that is going to premiere next month on History Channel. Mike, we still can't talk about it, but how are you tonight?
I'm miserable. I had a migraine headache this afternoon, and I'm feeling like crap. But I am here because the show must go on.
But you look
you don't
good.
Disappoint Jimmy Church. It's just the way it is.
No, but you look good, Mike, and it's better to look good than to feel good.
Yeah, it is better to look good than to feel good.
Man, I missed that.
Wow, did we date ourselves with that one, Church?
Yeah, nobody knows what the hell we're talking about right now. But those were the good days. Welcome back to the program, my friend, and I'm excited about our new series that we
can't talk about.
We can't talk about. I'm just going to let you know that I was just talking to the network today. We're very, very close, and I was giving you a hard time because I was finishing up the narration last weekend, and I got to look at things, and I'm so excited and so happy, but. I was giving you a hard time about not finishing up your lines for the show, right? So right before the show tonight, I get email from the network. We forgot one line So I've got
actually mine. I think are all done. I finished mine like last Thursday before I left for Colorado. So
I spent 20 hours doing voiceover. Right?
Yeah, you probably had a few more than I did.
Man.
You're in every episode, and I only got one. By the way, who decided who got what episodes, Jimmy? I'm curious.
You're going to bust my chops live on the air? It was me, Mike.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility.
I am going to bust your chops, but I'm still getting a steak dinner out of you. Am I going to get a steak dinner out of you at the Conscious Life Expo for Brexit?
I was going to say, I have an excuse now because you're an out-of-towner, but you're going to be in town, so there you go.
Yes. I know. How'd that happen? I'm an out-of-towner again.
I'll get you some of those famous jerk pork sliders over at the Hilton. Those are pretty good, though. Those are pretty good.
That doesn't constitute a steak dinner. I think we should ask Rita for a judgment on that one.
Yeah, Rita,
is that a steak dinner, Rita? I don't know.
You know what? And you know what Rita will do? Because you will publicly humiliate me. She'll look at me and go get him the biggest steak dinner that they have, church, and you're paying for it. So, yeah, that's a good play.
I can always count on Rita. Yeah. I know that she'll always side with me against you on most things.
The Rita play is always a good, safe play.
Right, it is.
So, where was I going? Oh, so they hit me with one last line, so I've got to cut that tomorrow. So apparently, it's not you hanging up everything.
No,
it's back on me. Yeah.
That's you, buddy.
But the show looks good, and I'm very, very, very proud. And I will. After the show tonight, I'll send you a couple of clips, and
I actually saw a couple earlier, little pre-cut things, and it did look great. I got to say, it looked really great.
Yeah, did you see the intro? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. I'll send that to you right after the show tonight. Maybe I'll bust it out during the break. Okay, now, Gene Cernan passed away today, and 82. How many Apollo astronauts are left with us?
Well, let's see. There's from Apollo 17, Harrison Schmitt is still with us.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Buzz Aldrin is still with us. Michael Collins is gone. Neil Armstrong is gone. Al Bean is still with us. That's 3.
Okay.
Pete Conrad, I believe, has passed away.
Okay.
Alan Shepard, of course.
Right.
Edgar Mitchell recently, last year, just passed away.
Right.
And then we go to Apollo 15. Dave Scott, I want to say, is still alive, so that's 4. Jim Irwin is passed away. Apollo 16. Let's see, Scott Worden.
What about David?
I don't remember who the Apollo 16 astronauts
What about
were.
David Scott? What about David Scott?
No, I think David Scott's still alive.
Okay.
Dave Scott's still alive. Charlie Duke may still be alive. I don't know. I know that there's at least 4. I just don't remember who the Apollo 16 astronauts are. Hey, there's this thing called the internet sitting right in front of me.
Yeah,
look it up.
It's going to be huge. The internet.
Yeah. No, I remember a guy. I was working in Toronto, when the internet actually came into being, and there was this older guy, probably in his 60s, and he was just telling me the internet was just a fad. It was going to fade out after a couple months. John Young is passed away. Charlie Duke is still with us. Ken Mattingly.
Oh, I forgot about Mattingly.
I don't know if Ken Mattingly is still with us.
Yeah, Apollo 13.
Yeah, he's still alive. So that's I think that's 6 of them.
Oh, what about Rusa, command module pilot 14?
Ooh, Stu Rusa, don't know.
I don't know about that either. Okay, so
I can look it up while we're chatting if you'd like.
No, it's just that it's part of the cycle of life, right? And these
these guys are all getting to be.
They were old then, if you think about it.
Warden. Well, they were mostly in their late 30s, early 40s.
Right,
yeah, they weren't young guys.
No, they weren't young guys. When you and I were young and we were looking, admiring the astronauts in the program, right?
No, Stuart Rusa is dead, by the way. He's passed away.
When you're 10 years old and you're looking at these guys and they're 40, those dudes were ancient, right? So here we are in 2016 talking about, it's sad that I'm surprised that any of them are still alive. It's just the cycle of life. And I don't want to be morose about it. But the other aspect of it is, when they are gone, that means the support crews, everybody, at Kennedy and Canaveral and all, they're gone, and the secrets You know, nobody is left to testify.
Yeah, well, you know what? Here's the thing, though, is I know that there are guys that worked at NASA, at Cape Canaveral, at Huntsville, at Mission Control in Houston, you know, whose grandfather worked there during the Apollo program, and somewhere in photo albums stacked under the stairs in Grandpa's house, there are tons of first-generation Apollo prints out there. They've got to be out there. I got to get my hands on those. So guess what, kids? If you're listening to this show, and you ought to be, go out there and find those old photo albums and send them to me, because I want to get my hands on those first-generation prints, because that's where you get all the real pictures of the lunar surface, not like the stuff you get on the line today. So.
Well, and I'll tell you another funny story about that. I'm going to tell the audience, I'm sure that you know, but here in the Valley, out like in Canoga Park, right, here in the Valley, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it was about 3 years ago, there was, okay, look, everybody, don't quote me here as fact, okay, but I'm going to stretch this a little bit, but basically everything I'm about to say is rooted in truth. There was like a Kentucky Fried Chicken that wasn't in use anymore, right? The building is, and it gets bought, and they go in, and in the back, in the storeroom, were cases and boxes of the original NASA, not only computer tapes, but videotape footage of the Apollo missions. They had been lost forever, and they're in a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Canoga Park.
In an abandoned Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's pretty impressive. Is that the LIORP stuff, LORIP stuff, the
this is the
Lunar Orbiter stuff? Is that, or
this
they just rent out a McDonald's? I can't remember.
Right. It was the Apollo mission tapes, and this is the thing that as they started to go through them, right, they realized that Apollo 11, to conserve tape, they recorded 12 over 11. We just recorded over it. And then 13 went over 12. You know, they're looking at the boxes, right? And it says Apollo 11, it's scratched out. Apollo 12, scratched out. And they just recorded over the old mission stuff because they didn't think that they would need it ever again. How nuts is that? I mean,
it's sad. It's pathetic. I mean, this is the record of mankind's one and only so far man trip to the moon. I mean, I have a friend, Ken Johnston Jr. I don't know if you've ever had Ken on the show, but he handled a lot of the photos in the photographic lab of all the handheld photography.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
He had 4 sets of it.
Yeah,
and they ordered him to destroy all 4 sets.
That's right.
And he did it. He did destroy 3 of them. He begged to be allowed to give them to universities and stuff, and they wouldn't let him, which I think is suspicious, and I've always felt like it was done because they knew there was a lot of stuff on him. But he disobeyed orders and kept some for himself, which have been invaluable in, pulling apart the secret history of NASA. And he gave the rest of them to Oklahoma City University, his alma mater, and unfortunately, those aren't there anymore. We think that a professor kind of made off with them when he found out what they were, realized what they were. So
he's still got a bunch.
There's still other stuff out there, Jimmy. Yeah. It's out there. If your dad or your grandpa worked for NASA or one of the contractors on the Apollo program, go look under the stairs because there's bound to be some really cool stuff in there.
I mean, we were so close. If they would have just leveled that building in Canoga Park, to put up whatever on top of it, gone.
Yep.
And it was a lucky find. So it was about 3 years
And it's
ago.
amazing how good the belly cam footage is, and the belly cam photos are just spectacular. They really are spectacular. I mean, it's some of the best resolution stuff you're going to get anywhere.
Oh, so. Kat just posted, "You look marvelous."
Yeah.
There it is right there.
Yeah.
All right.
If you like baseball caps, that look good. Yeah.
So
didn't have a chance to.
In my rant tonight, I was talking about the tube televisions and stereos and the amount of wasted stuff that we have, in landfills around the country. Isn't it amazing to think about? We used to drive down a street, and to your left and to your right was these big stereo stores, little mom and pop television shops and repair shops and hi-fi this and full color that. They were everywhere. And all of that is now gone. It's that part of it's gone, but the amount of stuff that we manufactured and sold in this country, but it's all gone now. It's all gone. It's a part of our history that has not only vanished, but the amount of petroleum and waste and human energy and money and things that went into all of that manufacturing and shipping and building and putting in your house and proud and then all
the Curtis Mathis TV. Remember Curtis Mathis?
Curtis Mathis, man.
What was it? The
most expensive TV,
expensive television. Yeah, right.
The rich guys. The Curtis
the
Mathis.
most expensive TV in the world, and darn well worth it. Or something like that.
And
yeah.
you could only order
Zenith.
them, right? There was something weird about that. You couldn't get it out of a catalog, right? Curtis Mathis. Wow.
You couldn't go to a Curtis Mathis store. There was no Curtis Mathis store that I can remember you could ever go to.
It was so exclusive, Curtis Mathis. But they're all gone. They're all gone. You remember that big console thing that you had in your living room? I know that you had one.
Oh, yeah,
where you had the TV on the left, and then all the way over on the right, it was like 10 feet long. Over on the right, the wood thing would lift up, and you had a turntable on the inside with the stereo, and you had the big speaker, and it had that smell. You know, you opened it up, and it smelled like a record player. It had that odor. Man, where are all of those? There must have been, at one point in the United States, 50 million of those.
Mm-hmm.
50,
probably.
Yeah.
Probably that's a good guess. Yeah. And now we have, basically posters that we're going to unfold that are going to be 70 or 80 or 100 inches across, and that's going to be our TV in 10 years. Don't you think in 10 years they're just going to be as thin as a poster, and you're just going to kind of unfurl them and slap them on your wall, and there they're going to be, right? That's going to be our TV.
I walked into one of the big stores the other day, and I walked by this new, 65-inch, and I'm walking by it, and it felt really, really thin to me, right? I thought, no, it can't be that thin. And I walked around the side, and dude, it was a quarter inch. Quarter inch, man. Quarter inch.
Yeah.
It had a little bit of thickness in the middle. It went up to like a half inch, but this thing was a quarter inch.
It's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's like they're as thin as our computer monitors are, even thinner, and it's just the way it's going. It's incredible technology. It really is. And thankfully, it was all brought to us by the aliens from Roswell who gave us the transistor. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be doing any of this stuff, would we?
Yeah. Well, I think there's still something to that. I do. Mm-hmm. I think when I look back throughout history, and I do this all the time, when I look back, we have a few seminal
at our
years.
Age, Jimmy, that's all you can really do is look back.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
I'm only kidding.
There's a few bumps in evolution where pretty spectacular, these great years popped up. But I got to tell you, 1947, if you take Roswell out of the picture, right? 1947 was a crazy ass year for history. A lot of things happened in 1947, and that's when you've got to, is it synchronicity? Is it coincidence? Was there
no,
driving
I'll
force?
tell you who it is. It's Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. They did their Babylon working and opened a dimensional gateway and brought in the freakazoid, 20th century, late 20th century technological leap. That was, something happened, I mean, Hubbard and Parsons were doing their thing with Marjorie Cameron, and they were trying to create the end of the world and the Babylon working and all that stuff. And then, all hell did break loose. It really did, between Kenneth Arnold and 2 weeks later Roswell and all the sightings in between. I mean, wow.
You got to throw in Aleister Crowley, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Crowley, of course, was peripherally associated, but at the time he was in England. It was really Parsons and Hubbard that were doing the wild thing there in Pasadena, right next to Burbank, as I recall. So right by the bunker.
Don't forget, there was something else that happened that year too that really throws a wrench into this whole thing.
The first Godzilla movie.
Well, no, Jack Parsons. doing the crazy dark ceremony at his house blew up.
Yeah. Well, now that was 52.
I know. I'm joking.
Okay.
But his house just blows up, right? That was kind of weird.
Oh, no. He dropped a beaker of some highly explosive nitro or something on the ground, because a guy who handles high explosives his whole life.
The Chinese dude was there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but anyway, he blows up his house. Blows up his house because he was trying to make the Philosopher's Stone. I'm telling you, there was some alchemy involved. Jack Parsons was whack. He was whack. But if you go down the 210 freeway there and you drive past JPL and you roll into Pasadena, and they're connecting. Back in the day, there was more palm trees and stuff that separated JPL from Pasadena. Now it's all pretty much connected with the Rose Bowl in the middle and stuff. But when you roll in, right there is the Parsons building, and it's still the tallest building in Pasadena. And right there at the top, man, it says Parsons. And if you know anything about ufology or JPL or NASA and Hubbard and that crazy part of history from 1947, it's still all there, man. You've got JPL on your left, and you keep going, and you see the Parsons Engineering Building, which is huge.
JPL founded on Halloween 1936, and Parsons Gate, which is actually at Caltech. And I mean, did you know that if you were to sit at the base of the Great Pyramid, set your compass for 333, which of course is a hyperdimensional Masonic number, and just start walking, and if you could walk across the oceans, you know where you'd end up?
At the security gate
at the security gate at JPL.
Yep. Have you been to JPL, right?
Oh yeah, I've been up there. Yeah, I went up there with a friend a few years ago. Been through their open house. I've been to the Heart of Darkness and lived to talk about it.
It's a pretty amazing place, and I do have a very, very one of my closest friends that I've known for 40 years now. His sister, who's like a year older than me now, used to cut my hair back in the day when I was a long-haired hippie.
Yeah, I need a haircut myself right now.
Yeah, actually. You're looking. The mane is growing. Well, she works at JPL, and she shot me this email about 3 months ago, and she said, you got to come up here. I want to take you on a tour before I retire. And I started to think about that. I've known her for so long, but she said, let's go. So I'll get the personal tour through the entire compound. I said, I can ask, and she said, do whatever you want. I said, okay, you know what I'm about. I know. So that's coming up here very soon, and I'm looking forward to it. I've been up there many times, but I've never done that.
Yeah, it's a cool place. I mean, going through the control room there and getting a good idea what it looks like, and just where they have control of the rovers and things. It's really cool. It's a high-tech place. It is founded though in occult nutbaggery. I mean, let's face it. It's just full of all that stuff. I mean, even von Karman was into thought he could create golems and all that kind of stuff and artificial Hebrew life forms, and it's just a weird place. I mean, what can you say about it? It's just one of those things you can't explain. But unless you buy into the idea that NASA has been full of and dominated by secret societies throughout its entire history, which I think is true. I wrote a book about it. Along with somebody else.
And we're going to talk about that in just a second. K28 just posted a picture of the main building over at the Parsons complex. And it's a great picture. But now you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It is a monolithic edifice of egotistical. It's just a very...
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Parsons.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Wow.
I like the picture of you with the long hair. That's also pretty cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's Sebastian Bach. I thought it was you for a second, though.
No, there is one a little further down. me with long hair that's not really very flattering.
Sebastian Bach. All right. Hidden Agenda. I remember when you started to write the book, and you and I were talking on the phone about it. This book, I think, for you was a little late. You could have written this a while ago. Why did you decide to write it now?
Well, it was there's all this talk about the secret space program, right? I mean, everybody suddenly was talking about the secret space program. I know that the MUFON folks, and by the way, I want to thank everybody at Colorado MUFON for a great weekend last weekend. They were really great to me. But everybody, even MUFON's going to do their symposium's going to be about the secret space program. And so as I started digging into this stuff, I felt like a lot of it was hearsay and not really supported by facts. And although I'd heard stories from people that there was a secret space program, I thought, well, I wonder, is there really actually evidence for that? I can't say proof necessarily, but I can say evidence, and we can make logical deductions. That's what we do in this field is we take a piece from over here and a piece from over there, and we put them together, and we start to put together a narrative. And so what I started out just being curious about was, is there really some evidence that there is some sort of secret, clandestine, parallel program to the public program that NASA has out there? And so I decided that looked like there was, and I decided I'm going to get going here, and I'm going to try to put together all these pieces in one place so that this kind of becomes the foundation, the underpinning of all these other stories that you hear. I can't speak to the veracity or accuracy of other people's information about that they get from insiders and things like that. But I thought, is there really a possibility that this technology exists, that the John Leonard Walson space platforms really exist, that those are not fake images? I mean, is that a possibility? Do we really have UFO technology? Do we really have flying saucer technology, like some people have told me secretly, whispering over the shoulder kind of a thing? And so that's kind of what I wanted to do. I just wanted to dig into what's the deep set truth reality behind this.
I'm listening to you, and at the same time, I'm looking at some of these videos of AJ Foyt. It's AJ's birthday today.
Oh my God! How old is AJ?
187.
Yeah, and he won the Indianapolis 500 27 times.
Yes, he did, and I watched him win. Geez, I saw 77, and obviously I didn't see 61, 63, or 65 because I was born in 63.
No, I didn't see 77 either. I was only like five years old.
No, you were not 5. You were 22 in 1977. But I got to tell you, in 1977, that car, the Coyote, the Gilmore Foyt 14 that he ran in, I think the first year for that car was 72, 73, 74, 75, 76,
I think he ran it in 73. He ran a Coyote.
73. No, he ran
a version of.
No, he ran, right. I mean, he ran a Coyote in 67. Okay.
Well, he called it a Coyote. Right?
That's right. It was a Ford V8, Coyote V8. But this one, that car, that iconic car, 73, 74 through 77, that was the baddest design of any Indy car, period. Nothing tops the way that car looks.
No, I'm sorry. I think the McLaren M16 is way
No. It doesn't even, not even, and although McLaren, Rutherford, and his number 2, that was a great looking car. Right, it was, but nothing compared to the Coyote Foyt Gilmore 14. And this is the other thing, and we're going to head toward the break here.
Okay.
Foyt's pit crew back then, they didn't wear flame suits.
Yeah.
They wore those plaid button-down shirts, right? I'm just like, dude, they're out there, with aircraft fuel. In a button-down Oxford. Those were the days. All right.
It's crazy. I mean, because right before the Indy 500 last year, ESPN Classic played like every ABC broadcast of the 500 from the 60s all the way up to the current time.
Right.
Even the very dark IRL era. But it's amazing. I mean, the gas tanks were on the side of the cockpit.
Yes.
Next to the driver. So that
right.
If you hit the wall, the methanol exploded all over. I mean, it's insanity, and there was
insanity.
No speed limit.
No.
On pit row, it's amazing.
Yeah, those were the days, man. I was there, too. It was crazy. Our guest tonight, Mike Bara, Fade to Black. We're talking about his latest book, Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. More with Mike right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Well, yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I went from being able to work 14, 16 hours a day with no problem to where I could barely walk a block to the store. I went on to the phytonutrients about 6 months ago, and within a couple of months, my medical doctor had cut my prescriptions down in a little bit smaller dosage. The next time I went back a month later, I walked into the doctor's office and he says, "My gosh, what's happened to you? You don't even look like the same person." He looked at my legs and the swelling had gone down. My blood pressure was down. The venous stasis ulcers that I had had on my legs for the last 4 or 5 years because of the poor circulation were all healed, and I'm feeling far better.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free. And we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Hi. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. This portion of Fade to Black is brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. It's dark, complex, and smoky. Just go to the River Moon Coffee banner right now over at jimmychurchradio.com. Use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order. All right, back to Mike Bara. Mike, I just posted the 1973 Gilmore Foyt Coyote. That car is the baddest car ever. Look at that thing.
I saw it. It's actually I think the front wings are really kind of clunky, and I don't really like that. I also posted the McLaren M16. See that a little farther down there if you go down. Peter Refson. Just
see that little piece of tape on the front. Extra 4 miles per hour right there. See this
piece of tape. Yeah, AJ, it's really funny. It is, guys. Jimmy and me are both IndyCar fans, and we go way back on this stuff from the '70s. So we have this. You're like, besides my brother, you're the only guy I can talk to about Indy cars.
Well, see, this is the thing. Back then, you designed your own car, and you brought that thing and you racked that thing up to 200 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
You don't hit the brakes in the corner. and you brought it and you drove it. And this car, out of the entire field at Indy, was the only one. AJ designed this car, and it was just for him. And this is a very unique machine, and I just love it. And it was its own design, and he was a rule breaker, like Lloyd Ruby. Remember him?
Oh yeah, of course. And and a lot of times they built their own engines too. So it was more than just the car. A lot of guys were using Offenhausers then, but you could build your own engine still according to the rules. So that was those were the scary days. I of course had a career as an aerospace engineer, and I designed some structural parts on air. By the way, there's an adorable picture of Tanya, my girlfriend's Chihuahua Taylor, watching me on her computer.
Okay.
On the feed right now on the F2B hashtag.
Okay.
Really cute. But it's like, I never want to fly on an airplane that I did the stress calculations for. I just don't. And to actually get into a car with your rear end about 3 inches off the tarmac, at 200 and some miles an hour, that takes a set of 2 something. That,
it does.
Takes a lot. It takes you got to have some guts to do that.
I'm looking at the McLaren, which I have a model of this, and I love this design. I really do. But again, I want to stress with everybody, there was, especially in this era, the late 60s, early 70s, there was 10, 15, 20 different designs. Right, everybody had their own little thing, and they were trying to just get the one up on the next guy. So there you go, man. Look at my team is posting some classic AJ Foyt pictures here. Look at that. Yeah, the later version of the Gilmore Foyt with the wings, he called them the winglets, right, by the tires. Yeah. That was they made those legal in I think 74, 75. He came out with that version. But,
that's the one with the. Actually, that's the 77 version was the one he got his last win at Indy.
But he ran that version with the winglets on the front end the last 3 years, 75, 76, 77.
Yeah, really just to control the airflow over the front tires. And
I never thought it looked as cool as the 73 car without the winglets. The one that I posted.
Well, 73 is beautiful because the 73 Eagles were also extremely fascinating looking. And
Gordon Johncock and
Gordon Johncock and Sweet Savage. And then you had the McLarens were in their 3rd or 4th iteration. You had Mark Donohue, you had Gary Bettenhausen, you had Refson, I think was dead by then, had passed away. But he may not have been, but I think he was.
You can't forget about
Rutherford. So
you can't
great days.
Sweet Savage, and then also Johncock and his teammate with the number 40. Johncock had the 20. Who was his teammate in 70?
No, it was Sweet Savage.
No, Savage died in 73. In 74, who took over the 40 car? Man. Anyway, okay. Back to Hidden Agenda. I could talk IndyCar all night long.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, we did not advertise this as the IndyCar show, and people are starting to complain on Twitter. So maybe we better get to it.
In Indy STP 40, 1974. I'm doing it right now. That was Patrick Racing, right? Wally Dallenbach.
Dallenbach. Yeah, there you
that's
go.
it. Okay,
senior. For those of you who are NASCAR fans today.
Man, how bad is Twitter lighting up right now? Okay, so when we talk about the secret space program, you kind of alluded to this, but there are 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 versions of the secret space program, depending on who you talk to. You talk about Lavenda. He's going to talk about Operation Paperclip and the derailing of NASA by Operation Paperclip, and that was a secret space program. You talk to Corey Good, we've got a whole nother SSP, right? And you reach out to other, and so SSP means different things to different people. What are your definitions? What's your when you think of the secret space program? What are you talking about first?
First, I'm talking about Nazi flying saucers. Okay. I think that's the first direction, the first development of the flying machine. Second, I think there was a parallel space program, secret space program, started by JFK, which became NASA, which probably got derailed after his assassination. So I think you actually had two parallel secret space programs. And then you may have even had a third, which is the crashed flying saucers, with stuff that the secret security agencies were actually developing out of the technology they got from the crashes. And as you go back through history, I mean, you look at the German involvement and all the way back to this secret organization called NIMSA, which appears to have started about 1800, which was a bunch of wealthy Prussian industrialists who, I think Joe Farrell put it this way, looked at the ancient texts, the Mahabharata and all those things, talking about the Vimanas, the flying machines. They looked at those ancient texts through the eyes of physicists and wanted to build airships, flying vehicles. And it took them almost 100 years. But from what I can tell from the research I did, it looks to me like that they did accomplish it. They sent Prussian engineers from the old country to the United States, where they migrated out to Sonora, California, which is about 140 miles east of Sacramento, and they worked on developing this, secret flying technology back before there were really even hot air balloons. I mean, you could fly hot air balloons, but you died 90% of the time because you couldn't control them. And they developed what appears to be anti-gravity technology. There was apparently a breakthrough that they called NB gas, which they claimed was some sort of fuel that had anti-gravity properties. And we're not talking about hydrogen or helium or something like that. We're talking about an actual anti-gravity effect that could be created inside of these balloon-like objects. And then they worked on, at the Sonora Air Club, they worked on developing the control mechanisms, the propellers and things like that. And this is all documented in the work of a guy named Charles Delshow, Charles A.A. Delshow, who, when he got back from spending 10 years in California, actually started making drawings of all of the different aircraft designs that he worked on between 1840, 1850, 1860. And they are, when you look at him, Jimmy, for me, I used to work in engineering. I still do. If somebody wants to give me some money to go work on engineering, I'll still do it. But he actually drew what we would have called back in the old days production illustrations. Before we had 3D computer models and 3D computer mock-ups, they used to draw every component, every single piece, right down to the last rivet, in an artistic sort of isometric perspective of the airplane. And that's what Delshow did. He's got these drawings. There's these massive binders of all of these airships, and he shows where the crew cabin are, what the crew does, the propeller-driven steam engines, the balloon area where you've got the NB gas flowing through. And I mean, this stuff is really complex, and it's definitely engineering. And it's not just this, some people say, oh, it's the flying fancies of an artist, a guy who was an artist in his retirement. He actually was drawing pictures of things that he worked on and helped design. And one of the reasons you can tell that is because there's this weird runic code all over these different drawings that he did, and it's really, really similar to stuff that they came up with later, during the interwar period with Maria Orsic and the Vril Society. So, it's like that is, to me, the German connection where it all started. And then in the late 1890s, 1896, you have the first sighting of one of these airships over, guess where? Sacramento, right near Sonora. And then they kind of make their way back to the west. And it's weird because the sightings, including the crash in Aurora, Texas, the famous crash in Aurora, Texas, they actually, they follow a path, the same path that Delshow took out. They follow back, and it's as if the Prussians had finished their airships, gone and worked on them, built their designs out there in California in the middle of nowhere, which is the perfect place to work on secret flying aircraft. That's why we still have Area 51 and Edwards out in the west, because it's still really underpopulated. And they flew him right back to Prussia, is what it looks like. It's a series of sightings that went from west to east, right back following Delschau's path that he had taken out to Sonora in the first place. So I think what happened is they went out there, they worked on these designs, they had an anti-gravity breakthrough, they built craft that actually worked, and then all of these airship sightings during the airship wave was simply them taking the technology back to Germany, back to Prussia, back to an area called Silesia, in which was Poland, and then Germany, and then Poland again, and then Germany again. So
I would give
it's pretty fascinating stuff. And then there's a bigger story to that area also.
I would give my right arm to get one of his prints in a frame.
Oh yeah, I assume you've seen them. They're pretty spectacular, aren't they? Yeah.
I spent so much time looking at each one. I went through a very, very long period with this guy, and looking at them. And you've got to, when you think about the dating, that's the whole trip here.
Yeah.
And you look at his little propulsion systems and some of these balls. I remember balls with these circular fan ball things that reminded me of almost like turbines. But we're talking about predating the train.
Yeah, and this is where they were using this NB gas breakthrough that they had, that Freyer, I think it was Gustav Freyer, one of the members, I think he's the one who claimed to have come up with it. And again, Jimmy, I'm just going to tell you, those are not artistic paintings. Those are engineering drawings.
Yeah,
they're primitive by our standards today, but that is some of the earliest engineering drawings, and I recognized it immediately. I'm like, this is engineering. And then you have the code. What does the code mean? Nobody has yet deciphered what the coded messages are all over his prints.
Yeah, just absolutely spectacular stuff. And for anybody, it's Charles Delschau, Dellshau. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I can look in the book. I can actually look in the book, which I'm holding up on my Facebook.
I remember things with really cool landing gear and just totally way 100 years ahead of his time. I mean, there's no question about it. So there's that part of the secret space program. I get that. And then let's go into like middle history. What are we talking about the secret space program in the late 50s, early 60s?
Well, you have to kind of take this step by step, because what happened is that let's just pretend. Let's assume that they got these flying aircraft back to Germany or Prussia. It then became Germany. We had World War I. Then you have the interwar period, where there was this fascination with physics and mysticism led by, Maria Orsic and the Vril Society. They were very involved with the Nazis, and she did these channels of stuff from aliens, supposedly from Aldebaran, right? And her and the guys in the Vril Society. And she actually did automatic writing and wrote down, again, this secret code, which was very similar to runic symbols and runic alphabets, and also very similar to what Delschau created. And what they were trying to do at the time in the early history, pre-Nazi history of World War II, and then in concert with the Nazis, is they were definitely trying to work with what they thought were higher beings, higher powers, aliens, to work on creating these exotic flying craft. And then you jump into World War II, where we have, the SS, I forget what it's called, I want to say the Paranormal Division, but that's Return to Castle Wolfenstein. But it was the video game. It was actually, the secret organization run by Hans Kammler. Now, the interesting thing about that organization and the stuff that Joe Farrell talks about was that it was, again, operating out of Silesia, which used to be Prussia, which is where the guys like Delschau and everybody came from. So, again, you have this one area of Europe where all this secret technology is being worked on, and that's where they built the plant where they eventually then built the Nazi Bell. And Kammler's overseeing all this stuff, all the secret weapons development and technology. You had the test rig that was there. And, according to the records, they appear to have successfully developed the Bell. Now, some people think the Bell was a craft. I think it was an anti-gravity reactor of some kind. And again, the interesting thing about it is as you get into this detailed stuff, I think David Wilcock's done some of the research on this, along with Farrell, is it talks about this viscous, red, dense fluid, violet-colored fluid that was pumped into the Bell itself, that had these huge rotating magnets, electromagnetic plates inside of it. And it was called Zerum 525, which I think is a further development of the NB gas, and which also you could call, I think, red mercury is probably the latest thing that they call it. It's just some exotic formula that they had access to, and that gave the Bell its capability of lifting off the ground. And of course, we know it had terrible deleterious effects on living flesh as well. It was really not a good thing. But I think that became the reactor. And then I started looking. And sorry if I'm filibustering.
Well, no, you're not. But let me jump in really quick, because
Okay.
when it comes to Hans Kammler, the other part of this mystery is actually him singular. He was supposed to have died like a half a dozen times.
Yeah, he died 4 times.
Four
officially.
times.
Yeah.
Was seen all over Germany, and then actually disappeared with some of his staff. Right?
The scientists,
up
exactly.
and disappeared, never seen again. And you just have to ask yourself, did he go to Antarctica? Was he time traveling? Did he use this technology to get out of Germany because it was coming down? Nobody knows for sure, but there are so many different accounts from his death, no body, and the accounts of his death come from different locations. Like there was a smoke screen that was put up, and then he literally took his toys and split.
Yeah. Well, the rumor is that he went to Norway, where Hitler inexplicably had 250,000 troops right up until the end of the war, which could have come in real handy on the Eastern Front at the end of the war when the Russians were coming, and then he went to Argentina, and from Argentina he went to Antarctica, where of course in the pre-war years, the interwar years, the Germans had basically colonized this massive area that they called New Schwabenland, and it was German territory. In fact, it's only been in the last 4 or 5 years that USGS geological survey maps and UN maps no longer call it New Schwabenland. I mean, basically what that's telling you is that Nazi Germany still had a claim to this territory up until just a few short years ago. And so the rumor is that they then went and took this technology and started developing it in Antarctica. Now, along with that, you have the Bell, but most of the reports on the Bell are that you basically had to chain it. You had to chain it to this test rig to keep it from just flying off and going anywhere it wanted to go.
Right.
So, but at the same time, there was a guy named Schauberger who was developing a device called the repulsing, which was a disc-shaped vorticular generating Cananda effect using disc-shaped craft that allowed him to basically, as he stated it, supposedly defy the laws of physics, fly around in any direction you want. And if you were to take the Bell and stick it inside one of these repulsings, a large one, say 40, 50 feet in diameter, you would get the classic Nazi flying saucer shape that we see in all the photographs. I think Eric there on the FTB hashtag has a picture of one of them. So I went, hey, again, using my engineering mind, I realized the reason you have that cupola in the middle of a flying disc like that is because you use the disc shape to control the direction, and the Bell is what is the reactor that gives you the anti-gravity effect and the inertial shielding. So, as I begin to look at it, I'm like, hey, this thing all fits perfectly, and then of course the rumor is that after that was Operation High Jump, the invasion of Antarctica right after the war, and we supposedly got our butts whipped by a bunch of Nazi flying saucers, apparently developed by Mr. Kammler and his buddies in Antarctica. And again, if you look at High Jump, it very clearly is that they basically established a base on the other side of Antarctica, and then there was kind of a double pincer move from both sides, hitting it from east and west. I want to say east and west, but it's Antarctica, so it's directions kind of don't mean much when you're at the bottom of the world, right? But they hit it from two sides. And all we know is that 5-6 weeks later, they bugged out and left behind a bunch of equipment. And, the rumor is they got their rear ends kicked. And even Admiral Byrd said afterwards that, the biggest danger the United States faces is incredibly fast-moving craft attacking us from the poles. That's what we have to defend ourselves against. And it's like, wow, that sounds like a Nazi flying saucer to me.
Well, and when Byrd was quoted, it did make it into the papers, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but he basically said, we've got issues here because they have a craft that can fly pole to pole in an instant. What this is an admiral, right?
Right.
What is he implying here? Who is they? What is he talking about? And at that time, we were barely officially breaking into the jet age.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's the thing too. Is imagine how scary if that's what happened. Imagine how scary that must have been for the United States government. Because on the one hand, you're being confronted by the Russians, who are working on an atomic bomb. On the other hand, you just got your butts handed to you by the Germans, these Nazi flying saucers, which are using technologies that you can't even imagine. And then you throw in what apparently had happened already in 1942 and 1947 at the very least, which is crashed flying saucers. You have aliens to concern yourself with. So you're kind of, if the United States government must have felt at that point like they were surrounded on three sides. And one of the reasons why I think this is really validated is if you look at the end of World War II, near the end of World War II, we got stuck after the invasion of Normandy. We got stuck in the hedgerow country. We couldn't break out. They brought in Patton and said, okay, get us out of here. We don't care how many soldiers you slap or how much you curse. Get us out of this mess. And so he took over Third Army and he broke out through the German lines, swept across France, counterattacked the Battle of the Bulge, put that down, and then he crossed the Rhine River in early 1945. Now, the end of the war would be when the Allies sacked Berlin. That if you go straight for Berlin, you beat the Russians there, you have control of the German capital, you put an end to the war politically, that's what you got to do. Patton could have been there in less than a month. But instead of allowing him to go for Berlin, they diverted his Third Army, and I'll give you three guesses where they diverted it to.
They diverted.
Okay, I'll give you one guess.
Okay, well,
Silesia, right where all of this technology was being developed by the Germans, where they went right for the Nazi bell and the facility that was there. That's why actually the Russians beat us to Berlin by a little bit, is because we diverted our best army to go after whatever secret technology was there in Silesia, and that was the bell. And by the time we got there, Mr. Kammler had slipped away.
Well, and that was the trade-off. We knew that by making that arrangement with the Russians were so pissed that they wanted to be the ones to get to Berlin first. And we could have beat them there, but we wanted to go north and get the technology. So we satisfied the Russians by going, hey, dudes, okay, you know what? Go ahead and take Berlin. Because they thought that we were going to get there first, but they had their pride on the line after what Hitler did in Stalingrad and everything else. So they wanted to be there first. And that was the trade-off. What the Russians didn't know is what we knew. And we were going to go north and get all of the technology. They thought that it
was actually southeast. There was Peenemünde was to the north, but southeast was where rockets were one thing, but the Bell and that other hyper exotic physics technology stuff, that was the real prize, and that was the big danger. And that's why Hitler was protecting that area over the capital of Berlin at the end of the war, because he kept telling people, we are developing super weapons that will win the war for us there, so we must protect that area. People thought he was nuts. Now I don't think he was so crazy after all.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Mike Bara. We are discussing his new book, Hidden Agenda, NASA and the Secret Space Program. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. More with Bara right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo
soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oh, fall. My favorite time of year. Cooler temperatures and, well, let's be honest, layers. Lots and lots of layers. Look, I get it. We all have that favorite hoodie. Matter of fact, I've got a few favorite hoodies. You should wear yours. Enjoy it. I do. But I stay focused on my health year-round. And for me, I take Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. I eat right, control my portion sizes, still maintain a commitment to regular fitness, and I get plenty of rest, and I take Nature's Youth RSF. It's okay to cover up your beach body for a few months, but don't just forget about it. Nature's Youth understands exactly what it means to provide top-quality health products, and Nature's Youth customers not only improve their health, they know they're also providing their body with the right nourishment to maintain peak performance levels and fight the aging process. So layer up and get started today with Nature's Youth RSF. nature'syouth.com. Simple to use, even simpler to order. Go to nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. The first big conference is coming up February 10th. Can't even believe it, man. February 10th through the 13th. The Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. We'll be broadcasting Fade to Black from the Plaza Ballroom on Friday the 10th. Doing the Ancient Aliens panel on Saturday. I think Bara's involved with that. Bara's speaking all weekend long. Just click on the banner over at jimmychurchradio.com for tickets and info. Conscious Life Expo right here in Los Angeles, California. Now, check this out, Bara. I pulled up a Bird's quote, right, from the El Mercurio in Santiago, Chile. And here's the quote. Admiral Byrd declared today that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defense measures against hostile regions. Furthermore, Byrd stated that he didn't, this is a quote, he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but that it was a bitter reality in case of a new war in the continental United States. It would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. End quote.
Yeah, and that kind of sounds like flying saucers that he's talking about, doesn't it? I don't know how else you would categorize what he's talking about.
And this is the thing. Let's not beat around the bush. You're going to Antarctica. There's nothing there, allegedly, but penguins.
Right.
What do you need battleships for? Right? An Air Force. What do you need armed men? Thousands of armed men. What were
you could make the argument. I mean, they say it was Arctic training or actually Antarctic training to, in case we had to go to war with the Russians. But things hadn't really super deteriorated with the Russians yet. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. In other words, if we had to defend the Aleutians or Alaska from the Russians, we wanted to be prepared for that. But it doesn't look like it. I mean, look, when you look at it, they clearly they established a base at one end of Antarctica, exactly opposite New Schwabenland, and then they went around and approached from both sides this area called New Schwabenland, which is right on the coast. They went there to attack the Germans. That was a German base. They knew it. They wanted to know what the heck they were doing in there. And of course, we've all heard the rumors that the Germans went in there in with U-boats and found the secret underground passages to the inner Earth where the aliens lived. And And that sounds a little bit silly, except that, Herman Oberth later on, and I talk about this in Hidden Agenda in the book, Herman Oberth set out flat out that they were helped by people of other worlds.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Right.
He said, well, the reason we were so advanced technologically, and their aviation technology was way in advance of ours by the end of the war, we had help from people of other worlds. He flat out said it. And he was, of course, Werner von Braun's mentor and stuff.
Well, and you have to look at a few other things in basic context here. You touched upon it a little bit when you refer to the Soviets, but who is Byrd talking about when he's talking about this enemy? Because the Germans were just defeated, allegedly, right? So they're done. Russia didn't have the technology anywhere close with their aircraft industry. They were last on the list of having anything successful.
Yeah.
All of their other high technology was way behind all of us. So it certainly wasn't the Russians. It wasn't the Japanese. So who were the enemies that Byrd was referring to here? That you just have to ask the basic stuff.
Right. It's either Germans or it's aliens. I mean, take your pick, right? I'm not saying it was aliens, but maybe it was aliens. I think that they had developed working limited but working anti-gravity technology through the use of the Bell, combining that with the repulsing airframe, the disc-shaped airframe, and they built the classic Nazi flying saucer. And, we came down there to try to get all that stuff, and they showed us what they had. And there are people who believe that at that point that we realized they were superior to us. We couldn't defeat them. And we cut a deal with them, and the Germans kind of took over our government. And in fact, Germany really won the war. Well, I don't know. Look at some of the post-war pictures of Berlin and tell me the Germans won the war. They don't look like they won the war.
Well, there's another interesting thing to note here, which is that at the end of the war, as they were calculating deaths and everything, that there was 250,000 German soldiers unaccounted for. And that was even a conservative guess.
Maybe those guys in Norway we talked about earlier. What happened to them, we really don't know.
Right.
So.
That's taken into account everything, man. Casualties, deaths, and they still come up 250,000 short. Where did they go? Did they go to Antarctica? Well, they could have gone to Argentina, but nonetheless, that they were missing. And was it because there was an underground facility that was ready, that they had access to, that they knew about? When you talk about Schwabenland, what most people don't remember is that the Nazis flew over Antarctica with planes, dropping flags, Nazi flags, out the window, right? So they could plant flags all over, like a quarter of Antarctica, and claim it for their own.
Yeah, well, there was something there they wanted. Yeah. Something that they knew for sure. By the way, it looks like Kim Hurley was asking a question on Twitter, since we don't have phones. She was saying, am I saying that Hitler protected technology and we thought he was nuts, as with the Battle of the Bulge, for example? Actually, no. What I'm saying is that, Hitler was protecting this area called Silesia, or in what used to be Prussia, where all this high-tech aviation development had gone on for the better part of a century. And historians looking back didn't understand that, and they thought he was crazy. But he was telling his generals, we're developing super weapons there, Wunderwaffe weapons that are going to save the war for us. So I'm just saying, the historic perspective, maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe there really was stuff they were developing there that could have saved them in the end, but they just didn't have time to finish it.
Okay, you've got a lot of questions here. Okay, so since we're doing the Twitter thing, Ariel wants to know if there were bases or platforms for the Bell in Argentina.
I don't know of any. Again, I'd have to dig into Joe Farrell's stuff a little bit more, but I don't know of any. I know that it seems like what happened is Kammler basically passed through Argentina. It was used as a base of operations for a lot of the Nazi remnant. Why don't we call them the First Order, in homage to Star Wars there?
Right.
The guys that were left certainly were living and operating in Argentina. But it seems to me that the established bases, were in Antarctica. So I'm sure if he was in Argentina, it was to refuel, get his supplies, and then there was this massive German 4-engine plane that could fly basically from Norway to Argentina nonstop. Propeller must have taken forever, but that plane existed and it disappeared after the war, and they must have then flown it on to Antarctica, and I really think that's where they set up the base they had left was in Antarctica. So
now, what about the Bell technology and flying saucer technology, Operation Paperclip, and those scientists coming here? Obviously, that's fact. That's a historical record. Did they bring that to us here?
Well, certainly the Germans we brought over were pretty smart guys. I mean, Hermann Oberth, von Braun, they were the rocketry guys, but I think we must have understood pretty early on that they were not the top level guys, that Kammler and his people were really the top level guys, if in fact, of course, the high jump stuff happened, which I think it probably did. So I think then the United States probably went on its own crash program to develop their own aviation rocketry technology, and they're probably their own anti-gravity stuff, because the next big things that start happening, of course, after the war are Roswell and Kenneth Arnold's sighting, which, by the way, I'm kind of arguing in the book that Kenneth Arnold's sighting was a Horton HO-229 flying wing squadron that was being developed by the U.S., which he spotted near Mount Rainier. But then you had the Roswell crash, which was probably authentic alien craft. And there's also the Cape Girardeau crash that we can establish. Go ahead.
What about Rhodes in Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, so you have this alien technology, which we then begin to develop. I think we went on a bit of a crash program to develop our own flying saucer technology, because the Germans had absconded with theirs. They probably didn't have a very significant manufacturing base, but then the next big thing that happens, Jimmy, is 1952 with the buzzing of the Capitol, right? By these flying saucers. And the question then becomes, some people say, well, this was the Germans again, that they came from the south. It's fairly well established. The discs first appeared from the south. They buzzed the Capitol over 2 weekends, including July 20th, which is a pagan Nazi ritual date. That's why we landed on the moon with Apollo 11 on July 20th, 1969 and all that stuff. And I go into all that in Ancient Aliens and Secret Societies and Dark Mission. And, that was either Germans or it was aliens. Now, some of the behavior of the craft, blinking into existence over radar beacons and then blinking out of existence, it's kind of bizarre behavior. But I just think for some reason my feel is that stuff was alien. So you then have, again, at this point, the American government has got crashed alien flying saucers with technology they're trying to develop, including fiber optic technology. You've got the German jet engine stuff, which we haven't mastered. You've got the German flying wings, which we haven't mastered. You've then got the German Hannabaus, the flying saucers in Antarctica that kicked our butt. And by 1952, guess what? The Russians had the bomb. Okay? So we've got the Russians, the aliens, and the Nazis to worry about. And what happens after that? You know it. All of these secret intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the National Reconnaissance Office, DARPA, all spring into existence in this massive panic in the early 50s. And in parallel to that, one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is that all of the defense contractors of the period start to advertise openly for engineers to work on anti-gravity research.
And we also have the 9.
Oh, yeah, those guys. Yeah,
well, you've got to throw that into the mix, because that channeling, and they were talking about, something in a geosynchronous orbit that was, sitting above our planet that they were communicating with.
Yeah, the Black Knight, essentially, the Black Knight satellite.
Could have been that.
In essence. Yeah.
Could have been that. I want to jump back before we let this thought go, because somebody posted this, and it's a great question. What ended up happening with the Vril? Do you think that the Vril and Thule are still here with us today?
I think they got rolled into the SS. I mean, that's my assumption. prove it or not prove it, but I don't think they exist because, Maria Orsic and all of her followers, who were a really rockin' bunch of ladies, they all supposedly disappeared and went to Aldebaran or something.
Right.
Maybe in Nazi flying saucers, maybe or not. Yes, though I'm not forgetting the Cape Girardeau crash. That was important too. But see, what they had that was really interesting is they had the link between the technological stuff that had been being worked on, the NB gas and the Zerum 525 and the Nazi bell, and the mystical aspect, which was the vril and the sex energy and the runic symbols and the writing, the stuff that Delschow put on his papers and the stuff that Maria Orsic channeled from the aliens. And that's why the bell had these runic symbols on it, why it had them, because somehow that enhanced the physical effect. They believe that. So I think that they got rolled into the SS once the SS figured that out. And, who knows? Maybe she was part of the group that ended up going to Argentina and ultimately Antarctica and helping develop this stuff. Because I think some aspect of what the Germans were able to develop technologically was mystical. I think there was definitely a mystical aspect to it. They certainly believed it made a difference.
I think I can get some of Delshow's stuff. Ooh, I've stumbled upon something. Yeah, man. All right.
By the way, I've got some naked pictures of Maria Orsic. You guys want me to post them?
No. Keep it clean up. You're a married man.
They're in the book, though, guys. If you want to buy the book, so.
You're a married man now. Okay.
No, I'm not a married man, but I'm pretty happily.
See, you can't go down that road anymore. And I've been trying. So, okay, now let's kind of bounce up a little bit further into the timeline here, because we didn't, with all of this knowledge, with everything that we had with Paperclip and Von Braun, and everything was supposed to be clicking for us. We officially weren't first in space. We didn't get the first satellite up. We were behind the ball on everything. Why was that when we had Paperclip and we had anti-gravity and we had all of the top guys here? How come we were not first?
Well, it takes a while to develop all these things. And remember, the reason the Germans were ahead of us during the interwar and the war period was because they were willing to go places that we were not. They were willing to go places with the mystical stuff, with the runic symbols and the automatic writing and contacting aliens, and because they were willing to try things in physics because they were not constrained by quantum physics or the different, Heaviside equations, Maxwell's equations. They didn't buy into any of that stuff. They were willing to try anything. Einstein was working on the so-called metric tensor torsion field stuff, the spin energy fields, which I talked about in The Choice and which David Wilcock, I think, talks about in the source field investigations. So they were working on that stuff at the same time in parallel. And then there's one other aspect to this, and it just takes a while to develop this stuff, but there's one other aspect to this which is really interesting. There's a guy named T. Townsend Brown, and I assume you know who T. Townsend Brown is.
Yes, of course.
Inventor, experimenter from the 1920s. He's American. He comes up with a design for, a disc-shaped object. This is starting to follow a pattern, kids. A disc-shaped object that you electrify with very, very high voltage electricity, and what you have is the positive and negatively charged electrons. They basically jump to two different ends of the disk using this very exotic, patented, by the way, he got patents for this stuff, patented designs of layered dielectric, non-dielectric material, and you get the positive, negatively charged electricity electrons to jump from one side to the other. And then what happens is the disk moves in the positively charged direction of the disk. And he does later experiments where he's able to control the direction by changing the way it's charged and how the two, the electrons jump around on the surface. And he's able to discover other things, like the more massive the object is, the greater the effect, the more electricity you put into it, the greater the effect, the higher the voltage, the greater the effect, all this different stuff. And he's like, this is a gravity wave. What he thinks he's doing is that the negatively charged end creates a gravity hill behind the disk, and the positively charged end creates a gravity trough. So what happens is that the disk-shaped object is then moving in the positive direction, and there were problems he had to overcome, like figuring out a way to constantly recharge, because eventually the charge would stabilize equally around the disk, constantly recharge it. But the bottom line is he felt like the electricity was affecting gravity or space-time, and the disk would move in the positively charged direction. It's essentially warping space. It's the warp drive from Star Trek. And if you scale up his ideas, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't exceed the speed of light. There's nothing that says you can't, except the so-called laws of physics. And he puts all this stuff together, and in the 1950s, guess what? Again, all these defense contractors, at the behest of the U.S. intelligence agencies and the U.S. government, are begging scientists and engineers to come in and talk to them and try to develop anti-gravity technology. So what does T. Townsend Brown do? He makes a meeting with the Office of U.S. Naval Intelligence for something called Project 1794, which is basically how to build an American flying saucer that matches the capabilities of the flying saucers that people are seeing all over the country. He makes his presentation in 1958. And in 1958, about 6 months after he makes his presentation, all mentions of anti-gravity effects, all scientific papers about anti-gravity are cut off, and they're never to be heard from again. You can't get anything published on anti-gravity in any of the major scientific journals anymore. It's completely cut off. So basically what happened is he made this presentation to the Navy, they checked it out, they found it valid, and then they took electrogravitic propulsion secret. And again, this is if you want to hear some more about T. Townsend Brown, Paul LaViolette, some of his videos, I would recommend them on YouTube. It's fascinating stuff. So what happened was that we caught up or created our own secret space program, I think, using that technology. And the proof of that, Jimmy, is if you graph, and I've got this graph in the book, if you graph the speed of transportation on a graph, what you see is, you go from a human being who can go about 22 miles an hour, and then, a horse can take you 30 or 35, and then the steam train gets a little faster, and then the propeller-driven airplane gets you up over 100 miles an hour, and then the jet aircraft gets you up as far as the speed of sound, and then by 1960 you develop the chemical rocket with a maximum speed of about 17,000 miles per hour. And if you chart that graph goes basically straight up. I'll try to post the graph so people can get an idea what I'm talking about. Basically goes from about 1850 to 1960, so about 100 years. The speed of transportation the curve goes straight up like a rocket into the sky. And then in 1960, it goes straight horizontal. So what that means is that for the last 60, almost 70 years, if you believe that, what you're accepting and what you're believing is that we have made no transportation breakthroughs for almost 70 years.
Right.
Given the trend curve, that is impossible. And I think what we discovered but kept secret is the secret to anti-gravity, which took us to the Mars, the moon, and the stars.
Now, there's also, and I'm going to just touch on this briefly because it's, but I find it interesting, that there is allegedly, but I've read enough documentation on this, with the B-2 stealth bomber, the electrostatic, electromagnetic, electrogravitic effects with the skin on the aircraft versus how the airflow interacts with the skin, that it basically floats. Right? It floats. I mean,
in essence, it's the same thing that that again, Paul LaViolette is really a big into this. He talks about this where, they have positive charged electrons on the leading edge and negatively charged at the back end. highly, so it's an electrically charged skin, and that this creates a surfing effect, a bit of an anti-gravity effect, and allows them to fly the aircraft faster and with more stability.
And no gas.
Basically no gas.
Yeah. Fuel efficient.
Very, very little propellant.
Well, look at it. You see, this is the thing. When you look at the B-2 and they're flying that thing around the world, right? They're on some crazy... Those dudes are on a mission, that's a 24-hour thing. They got to fly from the United States to Iraq and back, right? Or whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Basically from Kansas to Baghdad was the standard trip they were taking.
Yeah. And now, obviously, they're probably refueling somewhere at some point, and I get that. But you can look at it. Where are the bombs on that thing? It's a bomber.
Yeah,
right?
They're in the bomb bay, but there's not much inside.
They're not using up much space for fuel. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to say. It just doesn't look like a bomber, like it would hold anything, but it holds a lot. That's because there isn't a whole lot of fuel on that. It's very efficient. Now, that's all that I'm saying, that there's some kind of anti-gravity, electrogravitic effect that is happening with the skin, with the engines, and how the airflow goes across, and as long as it's moving forward, right, it's floating.
And it's basically surfing on this this gravity wave, and this is right out of T. Townsend Brown's stuff. It's right out of his work. I think it's clearly a further development of that work, and it just seems to completely fit. So
there is a reason why we have that type of aircraft. Not the Soviets, not the Chinese, not anybody else. They're still going old school, right? And then you look at the B-2, and it's obvious that thing shouldn't fly. You just look at it and go, wait a minute here.
Well, yeah, and this is the interesting thing, and it kind of goes back to the Kenneth Arnold sighting, too, which is that, he talked about the reason they're called flying saucers is because the things were wobbling and jumping all over the place, and they were kind of skipping along like a saucer on a lake surface. And the problem with flying wings is that they are an inherently unstable airframe. And Kenneth Arnold even drew it up, and you look at it, and it looks exactly like this Horton HO-229, which the Nazis had built a wooden mock-up of, but not an actual flying prototype yet. But, the thing that enables flying wings to finally work is something called fiber optic technology, which we supposedly got from the Cape Girardeau crash in 1942, according to some of Dr. Bob Wood's research papers. And, that enables the computers to make minute adjustments of the air control surfaces to make the aircraft fly in a more stable way. Now, also applying the T. Townsend Brown concepts would do the same thing. It would tend to stabilize the airframe and make it flyable, whereas before, not so much. And that's why flying wings were given up on. Well, we gave up on them in the 1950s because they just weren't stable, and we couldn't keep them from crashing.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Mike Bara. Man, you know exactly where the timing is. Well done there, Mike. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking about his new book, Hidden Agenda, NASA, and the Secret Space Program. On Fade to Black, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, The Planet. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
You've probably heard about all the great benefits of goat milk soap, but did you know some companies take shortcuts? At Old New England Soap, we make our organic goat's milk soap using 36% goat's milk. That's 17% more than most others. Our bars are larger, so they last longer, producing lots of lather packed with vitamins. And our soap is a natural moisturizer that smooths dry and damaged skin. Order online at oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. You've tried the rest. Now try the best. oldnesoap.com.
Water-based soaps on supermarket shelves use harsh chemical acids to break down dead skin cells. And that's just not good for you. At Old New England Soap, our soaps are made without chemical ingredients, contain no alcohol or petroleum products, and use 85% organic materials and carry the USDA's organic certification. Try some today. Go to oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. oldnesoap.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have sciatica, then you know all about the crippling pain that travels from your lower back down your leg when a spasm occurs. It's brutal. In fact, it's enough to take your breath away. Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream helps relieve persistent, shooting pains associated with the sciatic nerve in the lower back and legs. This natural, homeopathic cream contains the most potent ingredients to soothe even the most excruciating pain associated with sciatica. Stop the pain now. Ask for Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream at your local health food store or go online to trasknutrition.com.
Would you like relief from muscle pain, headaches, and discomfort to sleep better, have more energy during the day, and just feel naturally amazing? Fibromalic can help. Its blend of malic acid and magnesium can provide pain relief and comfort for those who experience fibromyalgia. It helps your body absorb more oxygen, and it works quickly for a significant reduction in pain within 48 hours, all without a prescription. Ask for Fibromalic at health and vitamin shops or shop fibromalic.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. This portion of the show is brought to you by Studio Dome and their Fade or Not special, a hard shell case packed with a portable stereo Bluetooth sound system featuring the new TWS or true wireless stereo technology, 2 SBB2 speakers and a hard shell case, $129. Promo code JCRTWS. We got a bunch of email over the weekend that the promo code wasn't working. JCRTWS. It has been fixed, everybody, and there you go. Studio Dome. Just click on the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code JCRTWS, and you will also get free shipping. All right. So, Mike, I was just looking at the Gilmore Foyt pictures again. Dude, still, without question, the baddest car now in Indy history. I'm looking at the F-117A, right? Mark Tarana just posted a picture of it. And I remember, I will do this. I'll have to scan them. I have some actual old school pictures that I took of an air show back in... Let's go back. I'm probably thinking 1995, right? And I go to the air show, and they have the F-117 there, which at that time, top secret, right? Top secret. Yeah. So they have it, and they've got all these armed camo dudes around it with machine guns. I'm not kidding either. I've got a bunch of pictures. I actually talked these guys into let me go up and stand next to them and take pictures. They were pretty cool. But anyway, so they're standing, and this is what tripped me out about the F-117. It's tiny, dude. It's like an MG midget. It's like a Ford Pinto. Right? The wheels are like golf cart tires. You know, and I'm like, wait a minute. It looks so much bigger in pictures. And then you go up and you stand next to it, and it's a tiny little thing, and you look at it, and that thing should not fly. Right? It breaks all the rules. It
literally could not fly without all the computer control systems on it. Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, how it actually generates lift is a little bit of a mystery given its shape. I mean, it has wings, but they're not very efficient. So it's really, again, and I know what you're getting at. I'm guessing that you're saying that maybe this has some of that interesting
alien
brown
tech
stuff on it too.
Yes.
Well, I think it makes complete sense, and the whole surface of the F-117 is basically one big dielectric skin panel. That's essentially what it is. So it's pretty, it's a very, very weird design, and it's interesting. Compare it if you've been to an air show. Have you ever seen a Russian fighter called the Su-27?
Yep.
Which is at least twice as big as the F-117.
No,
and so you're looking at two completely different
right.
principles for how to get something in the air,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how it should fly. I don't know how it could fly.
It trips me out. And this is the thing. They brought the F-117 in. They brought in one at night. Right, so there was no cameras. Nobody was allowed to film it. Nobody, and it left, at night. It was, so secret back then, and so I didn't get to see it fly. But what I did see is it's on the ground, which means it was there. Right, they didn't bring it in on the back of a truck. This thing flew in and flew out. And I was just like, how does this thing fly?
Well, I remember same kind of thing, and I want to say it's like 1989. There was an air show. Boeing, the Boeing company, put on an air show down at Boeing Field, and they brought in an F-117, and it flew over my house. It was a cloudy day. I remember that, and I remember hearing this weird engine sound, and I looked up and I caught it, and it was turning or something, and it was flying at an angle, and it just didn't look like anything. It certainly didn't look like any kind of airplane. It looked like this block, all these weird blocky shapes flying through the sky, and I'm just like, how does that thing even fly? How does it work? I don't know. Smarter people than me worked on that one, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I so wanted to see this thing fly. I really, 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 really did. Okay. Now, we're moving into, well, certainly when we talk about the 60s, we're talking about a different secret space program altogether that was going on. I think, and I want your clear definition of what's going on. We had Apollo, and we had the public side of it, and then we had something completely running in secret, in parallel, completely black, completely dark at the same time. That's my own opinion.
I agree.
Okay, so tell me about the 60s.
Okay, well, so what I think happened then is Kennedy gets into office, and there are indications that back in the day as a senator that he was informed about aliens, UFOs, that he knew there was some stuff out there about this stuff. And he gets into office, and he starts talking to the MJ-12 guys. And I go through in the book and I talk about, the fact that I do think the MJ-12 documents are legitimate for a whole variety of reasons. I get into some of that detail. I also think serpo.org is legitimate, but that's a whole different discussion. At any rate, Kennedy gets into office and he starts asking about this stuff, and he gets stonewalled. And in fact, there is a memo called the Byrne Memo, which Dr. Robert Wood, who I consider an expert on documents, says that thing is genuine. And in it, it says, I think essentially, as it's definitely to other MJ-12 members, and it says, as you know, Lancer is making inquiries as to our activities, which we cannot allow. Lancer is the Secret Service code name of John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Bingo.
So it's very clear from that MJ-12 is not going to tell Kennedy anything. Now, is it because they had made a, business decision that presidents were no longer going to be informed, or was it just that they didn't trust Kennedy for a variety of reasons? Back in those days, it could have been because he was Catholic. They didn't trust him. You know what I mean? So I think that at that point they didn't they just didn't trust Kennedy, and they weren't going to share him the information. And they were saying, we can't allow this guy to stick his nose in our business for whatever their reasons were. So Kennedy then essentially says, F you, guess what I'm going to do? I know there's alien technology on the moon. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to create NASA, or, pump up NASA, and I'm going to take us to the moon using the technology that we have through the von Braun and the Oberth people, the rocket technology. And the plan was, I believe, to go there, capture the Anunnaki technology, let's just call it that, bring it back, and start our own public-private reverse engineering program. That's why I think Kennedy decided to go to the moon. So he, having been stonewalled by the intelligence agencies, then decides, let's go to the moon, let's get this technology, and we'll start building our own stuff based on what we bring back. And that, plus the fact that he decided he was going to share with the Russians. Now, it's interesting you mentioned the Russians earlier, because as you said, the Russians were way behind. They were farther behind than us. I mean, they were definitely bringing up they were the caboose in this train. And so he offered to the Russians, okay, I want to go to the moon to save time and money and in the interest of international cooperation against the Nazis, maybe. I want us to go together. And we will share with you whatever we find. Now, that is something that obviously the intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, DARPA, they cannot allow that. These are the Russians that just pointed nuclear missiles at us from Cuba a year earlier. Kennedy had privately offered Khrushchev a couple of times that deal. Khrushchev turned him down, and then he publicly offered it at the UN in September of 1963. And according to Khrushchev's own son, who is a very well-respected diplomat in his own right, and I think he's a fellow at Brown University, he said, in early November, my father accepted the deal. And then you have these two national security action memos that Kennedy wrote 10 days before his death, which I think are often misinterpreted, where he tells the director of the CIA to get together with the NASA director, and he tells the NASA director to open up an office for exchanging confidential information with the Russians, basically create a hotline. And by the way, Mr. CIA director, I want you to brief the NASA director, who at the time was a Freemason named James Webb, who now has a telescope named after him. He tells him, I want you to brief him on what secret aircraft we have developed that you know about, and so that they can inform the Russians what we have, what we don't have, so the Russians can make a determination between what are our secret space and aircraft and what he calls bona fide UFOs. So, in other words, alien spacecraft. And those memos were both signed. One is public. There's no question as to its veracity. The other one is considered by Dr. Wood to be over 80% likely to be accurate. And all I know is 10 days after he signed those two memos, they blew his head off in Dallas.
The Russians also at that time, their rocket engines, and to this day, are still better than what we have. And that's why we've been buying them from them, by the way. But putting that part aside, what I am very fascinated with is how we go from Mercury, which was a little, a bottle rocket compared to Apollo, right?
Have you ever been to the museum in Florida and actually seen the thing? I wouldn't have gone on top of that
dude,
thing.
It looks like a telephone pole. It's not very big. So anyway, I've seen them all. But the how we went from Mercury to Gemini, and that was a pretty big leap, by the way. But from Mercury to Gemini to Apollo was flying in 1967. So how we went from, 1 man to 2 man to 3 man, these extraordinary leaps in technology in what appears to be just months, right? That's it. We're talking about 1964.
Just a few years.
Yeah, well, I'm saying the leaps were in between, right? From 64 to 67, that's 3 years. Right? It's mind-blowing what we were doing with that space program, and I just have to say, how is that possible? How is it possible?
Well, if you put enough money into something, you can move very, very rapidly. But it is rather extraordinary, especially remember when you consider the 1967 Apollo 1 fire, which basically they had to start all over with Apollo, do a complete redesign on the actual capsule because there were so many problems with it. And it's like, how is that possible? I don't know. I don't know if you can do it with just regular rocket technology in that short a space of time. Certainly it was a full, we had a full commitment. I think it's theoretically possible, but it just doesn't. I agree with you, Jimmy. It's hard to fathom without there being some other secret technology to help them get these huge payloads off the ground.
Check this out. Project Mercury ended in 63. Gemini, 65, the program started, completed in 66.
Yeah, and they ran, 12 or 14 missions or something? There was just a ton of Gemini missions.
It's just crazy. And I don't know, how these crazy leaps in technology happened as quick as they did.
Well, because especially when you look at the Saturn V rocket, the engine, a single engine of the Saturn V is, I don't know what the actual ratio is, but it's got to be close to 100 times more powerful than the Mercury Redstone engine that put Alan Shepard into space. And, how do we go from basically a souped-up V2 to the Saturn V in 8 or 9 years?
Yeah.
And nowadays when we do things, it takes us 10 years just to think about building a prototype. It's crazy. So how that happened and how they accomplished it is really extraordinary. And I think you can get some of the information from some of the NASA histories. Are pretty extraordinary to read. They really are fascinating if you're an engineering geek, like I am. But Jimmy, it's like, I don't know. And again, you look at Hermann Oberth, who was working on the American rocket programs and was von Braun's mentor. He said we had help from the people of other worlds.
Now let's talk about what was going on in the late 60s through the 70s. And the projects that were going on the moon. Now, did the program officially, the last flight for Apollo, I'm just going off my memory here, 72, 73,
yeah,
72.
Gene Cernan, who just passed away today, of course, in 1972.
Right. So that was 72. The Apollo program officially didn't end for a few more years, and I find that interesting, too, as well. And without the internet and what we have today with television and cameras and so forth, we didn't have that back then.
Jimmy, World War I didn't officially end until like 2012 or 13 when Germany made the last reparations payment. So,
oh, man.
A lot of the Confederacy, guess what? The Confederacy still exists. Lee did not. This is interesting. This came up in Boulder at the Colorado MUFON. The Confederacy never surrendered. Lee surrendered his sword at Appomattox, but the Confederacy itself never surrendered. Technically, it still exists, right? So these things go on and on and on. And maybe Nazi Germany still exists legally. I don't know.
Do you suspect that there were missions to Mars in the 70s?
I have no idea. I got to be honest. I have no idea. It's possible, given this technology curve that we were on, given the development of this high-tech flying saucer technology, and given that transportation curve I talked about. It's very clear, I think, that we made a breakthrough in about 1960, and then that's when the curve goes horizontal because it was all taken dark and nobody got to see what we were really working on. And then you have cases like, you have the case of Mark McClandish, mm-hmm. and the alien reproduction vehicle, which is the next thing that happens in the 1980s, where they bring this thing out. You know this story, right?
I have the autographed print right here.
Awesome. So you have the ARV, the alien reproduction vehicle, which is, I guess it was a friend of McClandish. I forget the guy's name, and I really apologize. But he goes to an air show at Edwards Air Force Base, and somehow he gets mixed in with all the top brass generals, and he gets taken behind the curtain, and there's, 4 or 5 of these flying saucers lined up there, and they're hovering above the ground. They're not making any noise. They're shown videotapes of the things that these things can do that these flying saucers can do, going horizontal, vertical, traveling at incredible speeds, making 90-degree turns. And there's one that's got a cutaway. And as he looks inside the cutaway, he sees that below decks there are these rows of canisters kind of in a spiral motion around the base. And there's some sort of reactor or engine in the middle. And then at the top, there's two full-size, like, pilot chairs. Okay, so these are not alien vehicles. They're alien reproduction vehicles. They're not made for little itty-bitty 3-foot-tall guys. They're clearly made for full-size humans. And the thing I thought of when I saw that and started reading about it was, those canisters, what's in those canisters? And I'm thinking NB gas, Zerum 525, red mercury, something that enhances this anti-gravity effect. And then you take the next step, which is, okay, let's say we had these craft in the late 1980s. What did we do with them? And what I've been showing in my presentations is you look at the space shuttle videos of STS-48 and STS-80, and I showed this at the MUFON OC, Orange County, a couple of months ago, and one of the guys that comes there frequently is L. Blaine Hammond, a former space shuttle pilot, NASA astronaut, has a bunch of missions in space. And I showed him these videos, and he 100% agrees what you're looking at in both cases. STS-48 is the one where it pops up over the horizon and travels along the horizon, and then there's a bright flash, 45-degree turn instantaneously, and you see a couple of projectiles get shot at it from Pine Gap in Australia. And then STS-80 is one where this powered vehicle comes in from the right side of the screen, hits the atmosphere, flares up as it ionizes the atmosphere around it. Station keeps with the shuttle for a while and then begins to move back the way it came. Both clearly powered vehicles. And, I asked Blaine, I said, okay, is my interpretation correct or not? He said, no, it's correct. Those are both powered vehicles. And, we talked about some of the alternate explanations. So to me, what we're looking at is we're looking at that ARV, which is probably an outgrowth of the Kennedy concept, the Kennedy program, of us developing our own flying saucers. So it's a little bit clunkier, than a Nazi flying saucer would be at that point. It certainly doesn't seem to be as sophisticated and exotic as the alien technology, but I think you're looking at a vehicle that is a combination of T. Townsend Brown's work, the German work with the NB gas and the Zerum 525 and the Bell, and just stuff we had derived from crashed flying saucers. And it looks to me like by the 1990s that we had perfected this technology. It's right there on videotape. And some people want to say that those are alien spacecraft, but the weird thing about it is it's very clear from watching both videos that the guys controlling the space shuttle camera knew the show was going to be put on. They were looking for these things. They were videotaping them. And I just don't think the aliens call us up on the green line, and tell us, hey, by the way, we're going to be over Santiago, Chile at 3,300 hours on orbit 117. Get your cameras ready. I think that those were tests of our own secret space program vehicles. So when I saw those videos, I'm like, I think there's a secret space program, and I think there's a couple of the vehicles right there.
Well, and then we have all of the photographic evidence that we had throughout the 50s and 60s and 70s of the classic flying saucer dome on the top.
Which the dome, to me, the dome is holding, that's where the reactor is. You can put the reactor behind shielding. That's where you put the Nazi bell. And then the disc-shaped part is where the crew is. I look at that from an engineering standpoint, and it finally makes sense to me why that's the common shape, right?
Well, and the ARV actually did the opposite, where the dome was where the four seats were, right?
Yeah.
And the magnetic plates and the cooling system in the tanks were
on the bottom, or whatever's in those tanks.
Right.
We don't know what's in them.
Right. And that probably is what was flying around out there, according to Mark McCandlish. We thought we were, taking with all of these sightings and all the photographic evidence and newspapers and everything that was being published at the time, and eyewitness testimony was seeing this. We thought it was alien when indeed Well, it was alien technology, but it was us flying these craft around.
Right, and especially, Jimmy, what's been more and more common is these triangular shaped craft. And if you look at documents like the MJ-12 Special Operations Manual, the document that came out, which tells you if you go to a crash site and you encounter an alien, this is how you should deal with the alien. It looks like an official government manual, and it talks about the 4 different types of spacecraft you might encounter. This document appears to be from the mid-1960s or early 70s, but it talks about the disc shape, the classic disc shape, the cigar shape, the so-called acorn shape, and then it talks about the triangular shape. Now, my personal feeling is that, I know we're working on triangular vehicles, triangular space aircraft, because I worked on one. I worked on one called the A-12 for a very short period of time before Dick Cheney canceled it in the late 80s. And, my philosophy is if it's shaped like a disc, it's probably one of theirs. If it's shaped like a triangle, if it's shaped like a Dorito, it's one of ours. So, I tend to lean that way, but it appears to me that we've got different technologies being tried out in different ways. Like you say, the reverse of the design with the ARV compared to the Nazi flying saucer concept, the Hannibals, that's just people trying new ideas, trying to I wonder what would happen if we put the reactor generator on the bottom and spread it out, spread it out in a spiral shape. So it's experimentation.
Now, I want to talk, and we're going to take this past the break. When we are looking at a real secret space program, one that isn't out there for conjecture or we can sit and theorize about, that's the Air Force and the X-37B. Mm-hmm. And they are on their 4th mission right now. Last week, they crossed 600 days with this. It's the Air Force. It's obviously military. Don't know what they are doing with it. Obviously there's some testing going on and experiments going on with something, or they're up there doing something else, messing with our satellites or their satellites. It could be anything because we don't know. What's your theory about that secret space program and what the real use of the X-37B is?
That's the public secret space program. So to me, it's not interesting. I mean, obviously, it's based on shuttle technology. It's sort of a further development of shuttle technology. It has, it may be going back and forth to like a secret, semi-public military space station. Let's say that there's a second ISIS up there that, it could be sort of a standard. It appears to be a standard rocket. So it's not, to me, it's not interesting because it's not exotic. It's not a space shuttle. It's not, it's not a flying saucer. It's not anything really, really cool. It's just sort of a further development. To me, that's all show. It's like it's the pretend NASA space program that is really only a small part of what we're capable of doing.
Well, but I'm not talking about the X-37B. I want to know what it's being used for. It's up there doing something somewhere for 2 years at a stretch. Now, we're going to hit a break right here, but you touched on something very interesting. Is it shuttling between military space stations up there that we don't know about? The ISIS, the ISS,
that's what it is.
The ISS is the public situation. There's got to be something up there that we don't know anything about, and that could be it. We'll talk more about this when we come back with Mike Bara. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Follow Mike, @MikeBara33. I'll be right back.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I had gout in both my knees, and it's gone.
Well, I'm pretty stupid. I should have ordered it 15 years ago. Best thing I ever got in my. It's the most effective product that I've ever bought in my life.
He had eczema on his hand, and it cracked for years. He did anything from doctor, every cream, everything. And 3 months on the veggies and fruit, it was gone.
They're just awesome. They keep asking me, what am I doing? I told them what I did with my cholesterol. I had the blood test, right? And it went down 100 points. 262, now it's 162. Everything is just perfect.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
Would odors, mold, and mildew describe your basement or crawl space? It doesn't have to be that way. Transform them into a fresh, healthy, usable one with the technologically advanced Wave Moisture Control Units. The computerized operation maximizes moisture control and also expels harmful radon, combustion gases, and numerous other pollutants. Dehumidifiers are old technology that do nothing for air quality and waste energy. Wave units are intelligent, self-monitoring, do not need maintenance, and will save you hundreds in electricity. Wave units are still running effectively over 15 years. They've been tested and installed in public and military housing and by property managers nationwide. Buy a unit now, and if your home is not fresher and drier, you can return it for a full refund for up to 12 months. What have you got to lose? Call now. 1-888-618-WAVE. 1-888-618-WAVE. Or visit mydryhome.com. That's mydryhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Mike Bara. I do want to mention that the next big conference of the year, of course, is Contact in the Desert. And Contact in the Desert is coming up. Mike, you're going to be there, right?
Yeah, I'll be at Contact, and Conscious Life Expo is actually the next one.
No, I already did that at the last break.
I'm sorry. And by the way, all I have to do is your panel, and then my workshop is not until Sunday night. So basically, I can spend all of Friday and Saturday drinking.
No, you can't, because you're going to be on Fade to Black on Friday, so you can start drinking after Fade to Black.
Doug brought a Mai Tai. Doug Taylor brought a Mai Tai onto Fade to Black.
That was one of the, year. You know what? I'm going to say this right now. Doug Taylor, one of the coolest guys that we know, right? Walks on to Fade to Black with a drink with an umbrella in it and sits down. And I was like, what's up? What's up? You want to do this? I'm like, man.
Well, he sits down, and I'll never forget. You actually go, is that a Mai Tai? I mean, your voice got all high pitched, and that's hard for you to do. You were just like, "What? What are you doing?"
But his answer was even better. Yes, it is. I was like, dude,
yes, it is.
He had a Hawaiian T-shirt on and the whole thing.
I think you surprised him by bringing him up. I think he thought he was done for the night. So.
Oh man, it was classic. Love Doug. So Friday night. No, you'll be with us over at Fade to Black. And you know what's really cool about Conscious Life is that big room downstairs, the Plaza Ballroom, has all of the audio, visual. It's a big room, and we are able to do things correctly there. That's what I love about it, man. It is just a first class. Nothing is held back at Conscious Life. But
it was the ideal place to do the show. I thought last year. I thought that was a great setup.
And we'll be doing it there this year too as well. And that is February 10th through the 13th, and then. Of course, Contact in the Desert. And I don't have the dates in front of me for Contact. It's May.
Okay. It should be right in here. I'm looking at an advertisement.
Man, I can't even believe. Okay.
May 19th through 21st.
That's what it is. May 19th through the 21st out at Joshua Tree. And again, we have banners over at jimmychurchradio.com for that. Mike will be there. And, of course, signing autographs in the sun outside of the sanctuary.
I swear to God, I'm bringing a 100-foot extension cable and a fan this time, a big stand-up oscillating fan, because I am not going to get roasted alive. No, it should actually be cooler because it's earlier this year.
Well, see, this is what's funny. The last few years, Mike has, in front of everybody there, I'm going to throw you under the bus right now. Okay. So we have everybody there. Everybody's lined up. It's Stanton and it's John Anthony West and,
all the
and
dignified
Dolan.
UFO research as opposed to me.
Yeah, right. And Don Schmidt and Mike steps up.
Schmidt's not dignified.
He's always he's got nice hair. And so Mike always gets the first table, right? So he's set up first, and he comes in with his box of books and sets them down, stacks his books up, and we're all there. And then a couple hours later, we look back, and Mike's packing up his stuff. We're like, what are you doing, man? I sold out. I'm out of here, pal. And you do it like that every single year, man. I don't know if it's because people see you first or if you're really just, that loved.
Are you saying you want my table, Church? Is that what you're saying?
No,
you're trying to get my table because I'll sell it to you. If you
Hey, we had the kill spot last year. You have to admit.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, you did. That's the thing. It's really interesting because like Conscious Life, I don't sell very many books. It's more of a mixed crowd. A lot of the crystal energy people,
right,
laser healers, and the hippies. It's a wonderful collection of people from all different types of thought processes. Gail Thackeray, who I really love. She's there always. But it's the strictly UFO people that really want the books. And I always bring like 50, and I think to myself, usually I could have sold 150, So this year maybe I'll bring a ton.
Right.
Because it's just they just want this stuff. They just, sort of inhale it, and they're so committed. And that's why Contact is so special. Not simply because of the location and the energy that's there at Joshua Tree, but it's just that everybody is there strictly for the alien thing, and they are really into every aspect of it. And I've had so many wonderful experiences. Can I quickly just tell one little story from last year that just really touched me? In a non
is it when
wimpy way?
Is it when you got embarrassed when the UFO showed up above Dolan and I, and you were standing there and
the aliens ignored me and they took you and Dolan.
Was it that story, or do you have another one?
No, I have another one.
Okay.
I think I had a Sunday presentation. I had 3 or 4 presentations. I had my last one Sunday, and I'm out there, and I'm wearing my camouflage shorts, which I think I still have, black shirt, and this lady walks up to me before my presentation. She gives me this teddy bear wearing sunglasses, a black T-shirt, and camouflage shorts. And she said, I'm a school teacher, like a junior high school teacher, and we talk about your books all the time in class. And this is our Mike Bara, and would you take a picture with it?
Shut up! That's a great story.
That is the sweetest. That's the second sweetest thing anybody's ever said to me in this business. It was just amazing. So,
well, I'll share one other story before we move on. So last year, I'm doing my panel. Mike's supposed to be on the panel, and there were all of these rumors going around that morning. I'm with. I know who I was with. I was with Whitley Strieber. And Whitley and I are grabbing some lunch, and we were there to meet Rita and everybody who's sitting outside. Now,
you didn't invite me.
No, I couldn't because I get this phone call. Mike Bara had a heart attack. They took him away on a stretcher in an ambulance. I'm like, what? My panel is in a half an hour. So I call up Mike, and I go, dude, are you at the hospital? No, but did you have a heart attack? No, but and so Mike had to pass on my panel. So we went out and we put the lone empty chair out on the stage and dedicated the panel to you with the empty chair. And I just think you drank too much. That's what I think it was.
That's actually not happened. That's not what happened. I was experiencing dizziness for a couple of weeks, and I just a couple days before, a doctor said, look, your blood sugar is really high. I was under a lot of stress, and this has happened to me before where my blood sugar spikes when I get when I get under stress. It's like a pre-diabetic thing. And he gave me some medicine, but I like a really smart guy, Jimmy, I was late for my morning panel. So I went to McDonald's for breakfast, and shoved a Coke and carbohydrates in my face. And I'm sitting on the panel next to Don Schmidt, and I started to get really woozy. And I don't know, I went back and checked my blood sugar. It was like 460 or something crazy like that. So I had to take some more pills and lay in bed the rest of the day. I just got very woozy and dizzy, and it was like 110 that day. And by the way, it should be much cooler this year because we're doing it 2 weeks earlier than we did it last year. So,
well, we just posted pictures of Doug Taylor and his Mai Tai. There it is.
Oh, awesome. Okay, yeah, there's a picture of me with my bottled water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's Doug with there's the Mai Tai.
There it is.
And, and the thing is, it was just, and I'm sitting there like, as I'm asking for a little help to get up on my feet, and can I get a golf cart back to the Ding LeMay house where I was staying, and I'm looking over at Stan Friedman, and Stan's got a T-shirt on underneath, I could tell that, a white dress shirt, a very nicely tightly drawn tie, and a suit jacket, and suit pants. It's not like David Wilcock where he wears a nice shirt and then he wears the shorts.
Right.
Stan is completely dressed. The dude is not even sweating, and it's got to be like 110. He's just sitting there, not even sweating. And I'm like, yeah, Stan, yours is the superior. I had to give Stan credit for that. He held up better than I did.
He's also 82.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and you wussed out. So, all right, now let's get back to this X-37B. Do you think that we have weaponized space? And if we have, what have we weaponized it for?
Well, okay, I think the X-37B, I think it's a surveillance drone. Basically craft. That's what I think it is. It's up there taking constant images, videotape, that kind of thing, then dumping it down. I think that's what it's for. They're using it to spy on other countries' military assets, is I'm sure what it's up there for. I can't think of anything else it would be useful for. It's not big enough to really be a cargo plane. You can't really use it to go to John Leonard Walson's floating space platforms that we always see. So that's not what it is. But then the question is, assuming there is a secret space program, and assuming that these ARVs exist, and the question, of course, becomes, like you just asked, what are they using not just the X-37B for, but what are they using these other aircraft for, these other spacecraft for? And there's no question that they must be moving back and forth between probably secret bases that we have on these other planets. Now, I've looked at a lot of pictures of the moon and Mars. I've never seen a base, anything that I thought was a base that was active. But who knows? I mean, we don't know what we could have. NASA's probably not going to take a picture of an active military base on Mars and transmit it back and put it out in public. I just don't think that that's likely to happen. So, I mean, what's it for? I don't know. You know, people say we're in a war with the aliens. People say we're trying to keep the aliens away from us. There's no question that the STS-48 video, where it makes the sharp 45-degree angle turn, there's no question that that's a weapons test. There's something fired probably from Pine Gap in Australia below at the ARV, and it eludes it easily. So, I mean, it seems like we're preparing for war, but maybe that's just part of the whole, defense operations. If you go through, there's one chapter in the book where I talk about Serpo.org and the fact that I don't think it's a hoax. I don't think MJ12 is a hoax because, with Serpo, the point of a hoax is to put on the hoax. And then at some point you come out and tell everybody, hey, guess what? I'm the guy who made it all up. I fooled all of you. Look at how clever I am, right? It's been 10 or 11 years now since this stuff came out, and nobody has done that. So to me, that's an indication that the information is either disinformation, in other words, government disinformation, which tells you one thing, or it's real. And if it's real, when you go through it, there's a transcript in there of President Reagan in 1981 getting briefed on aliens. And they tell him in this briefing, there's this mysterious character called the caretaker who supposedly has he's the caretaker of all the information that we know about, government knows about aliens. And he tells him that, yeah, there are a couple of not so nice alien species out there, one of them being the tarantuloids, who don't sound like a whole lot of fun to hang out with. So in that case, I think we would be building a secret space fleet to defend ourselves from aliens who aren't so friendly.
What about the Apollo trips to the moon for that alien stuff that is there? The master, the command module, and certainly the lunar module were not very big. How did they get that stuff off of the moon?
Well, the interesting thing is this. Okay, think about the transistor, right? Which Philip Corso, of course, gave to the American defense contractors. By the way, I just got attacked by my cat on Facebook video. Miss Fluffy Muffy just tried to land on my back. Anyway, for those of you wondering why I suddenly leapt out of my seat. But you have, the transistor's not very big, Jimmy, and it doesn't really take much. I mean, they certainly had enough space in there to bring back many, many pounds of rocks. And one of the things that I've shown before on many occasions is this, what we call, from Dark Mission, what we call Data's head on Mars. And it looks like there's a body of a blown-up robot in Shorty Crater, and there's this thing the size of a human head. And you could go rappel down into the crater, pick that sucker up, put it in one of the rock boxes, and bring it back to Earth. And it would be it's like the arm in Terminator 2, right? Remember Terminator 2, where they have the Terminator's arm? Mm-hmm. And that's all you need one piece of technology to give you ideas and to help you come up with new concepts in engineering and technology. So you wouldn't have to bring back something big. You could bring back something very small that had revolutionary technology, and you could from there perhaps begin to reverse engineer it. Now, people have made arguments. Whitley Strieber's made the argument that, well, if you gave a laptop to the Romans, they'd never figure out in a million years what it was, how it worked, or be able to reproduce it. Well, but that's not the same thing. What if the alien technology is only 50 or 100 years ahead of us? What if it's only a few years ahead of us? And if the engineering and design concepts are the same, in other words, if we understand the concepts of hyperdimensional physics and spin energy and NB gas and red mercury and Nazi bells, once you understand that basic, direction in which the technology goes, then something very advanced like that would probably make a lot more sense to you. In other words, we're much better equipped to reverse engineer alien technology today than the Romans could possibly have been 2,000 years ago.
Well, we have a firm grip on electricity today too, as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. So I don't think that's a valid point. So I think that you definitely you definitely could reverse engineer technology, unless it was so advanced it didn't have any sort of, it was like magic.
I wanted to ask you really quick. We've got 5 minutes left here, and thank you for hanging on, man. I didn't even think I'm having a great conversation with you tonight. Well, I expected that, but we have blown through the time. We've got 5 minutes left. Have you had a chance to check out Scott Creighton's new book, The Great Pyramid Hoax?
I have not had a chance to check this out, although... Why don't you tell me about it?
Okay, well, I'm just going to say I'm going to give you the brief side of it because I want everybody to go and read the book because it is it's damning and compelling, right? So, but that in 1837, Vissy, who discovered the Khufu cartouche and the Khufu gang symbols in the upper chambers above the king's chamber, that's what identified, that pyramid for being Khufu's. Well, it's all a hoax. Now, how it was perpetrated, how he pulled it off, and everything else, that's in the book. Go and read it. But if we remove Khufu, because you study Egyptology just like I do. In fact, you've set me straight on a couple of facts over the years and have embarrassed me publicly. But
I'm sorry.
But that being said, if we take Khufu out of the mix. And now we are back to ground zero with the Great Pyramid in that we don't know nothing, right? Nothing. We know nothing. Nobody, not the ancient Egyptians, not the Romans, not the Greeks, not Cleopatra, all the way through to today. We know nothing. What does that do to human history and that 2560 BC number when the pyramids were allegedly built? Now, if we take the fourth dynasty out of the mix, what are we dealing with here now? And do you think that Orthodox academia is going to bend and accept this?
Well, somewhere tonight, Graham Hancock is smiling. I'll say that because he's always argued it wasn't Khufu's pyramid, and Robert Bauval as well, the guys that have been fighting this battle for a long time. And what it does is it completely destroys the history books. I mean, it basically means that you can't trust anything that you learned in your school your school textbooks. I mean, some people's thing is Egyptology. Definitely the history of the pyramids is not what we thought. It means that some very advanced ancient civilization actually built these things, not like you say the fourth dynasty Egyptians. It could have been all the way back to, in my last book, Ancient Aliens and Secret Societies, I talk about how all of Egypt was basically built by Marduk, who was an Anunnaki god, maybe 12,000 BC or even earlier than that. Certainly right after the last flood. So you're talking about completely blowing that up. And now the next thing we need to do, Jimmy, is to start digging into more and more of the physics stuff and start blowing up all of the so-called laws of physics and all of the nonsense about dark matter and the speed of light being a limitation and all that stuff. Because that's the next pillar that has to fall. And Jimmy, it's part of this period of time, the 2012 era, I like to call it, in the choice, between now and I say 2023 to 2025, where basically the truth is going to come out on a whole ton of things, and it's just going to shake up our view of everything. We're going to have I think we're going to have, in less than 10 years, we're all going to have a completely different view of our history, our future, and how we got to where we are today. And that this is just a big part of it. It's a huge, huge deal.
Exciting times. I am so happy about this, right? I just love it. And I don't know how Zahi Hawass is going to deal with it. But
yeah, they'll never accept it. In academia, I mean, basically, they'll just have to be embarrassed or the guys will have to die. I don't think Zahi's ever going to admit that. He's going to be telling people that Khufu built it for the rest of his life.
Well, if they there's been no scientific analysis allowed in those upper chambers, right? Mm-hmm. If you go up there now and we start testing the red granite, the paint that's there, and we start to carbon, and we find out that stuff is carbon dated to 1900, right? Plus or minus 30 years, all bets are off.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the truth is that there's really no markings inside the pyramid to speak of at all, except those. And it now turns out those were painted on in the 1800s. So
1837. Wow. Yeah. Hill,
so everything we've ever suspected about the pyramids is probably going to end up being true.
Yeah, it's going to change things, man. It's a real game changer. All right, what's your next book? What are you working on now?
Actually, I want to work on a conspiracy book. I want to do a book of the world's greatest conspiracy theories, and I want to include TW800, 9/11 for all of you 9/11 truthers. I'm going to take you apart. The moon landing hoax. What else am I going to do?
What, are you going to try to shoot all of these down?
Well, no. Some of them I think are definitely conspiracies, and some of them are definitely not.
You're going to sell like 2 books.
Well, no, I think I can get it done in one book. The moon landing hoax, all that stuff, and then one of the other things I really, really want to do, which my publisher is objecting to. Right now, I don't have a publisher for this. I'm arguing with David Childress about it. By the way, go to Adventures Unlimited Press and tell him you want to read this book. But the one story that I'm actually the most intrigued by, because I know the least about it, but I'm getting really interested in, is: was Paul McCartney replaced in the Beatles in 1967?
That's a good conspiracy.
And it's not. There's new information on it that just has recently come out that is really interesting. In fact, Paul McCartney may be alive and well, not dead, but alive and well, and still living in the house he grew up in. How weird would that be?
What? Oh, that's good stuff, man. So
I know, and I want to write that book, but David's arguing with me, and I'm talking to some other publishers. But right now, no contract for it. But I'm just going to sit down and write it. I've already started on it, and there's a couple other conspiracies in there too. The Kennedy assassination, I think I have to cover again, because it's how can you have a conspiracy book without the Kennedy assassination? So that's next.
Right. Well, it's exciting times, my friend, and next month our new series will launch, and I'm excited about that, and I can't wait.
And of course, my episode's going to be the premiere episode, right?
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, get back.
I'll get back to you on that.
I have a feeling I know which one is going to go first.
It's going to be a whole lot of me. Yeah. No, I don't know. The way that they've look, everybody, Mike and I are talking about this new series that we have, and yes, I'm the host, and the way that these are structured out.
Remember, guys, Jimmy's the star. I'm Chumley.
No. Is that each episode has a theme to it, right? So there's an overall theme. So you're featured in a theme, and that's what's really cool. So
and it was really fun to do. Very well produced. I think it's going to be a great show. I mean, I had a terrific experience with everybody involved.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you and I talking on the communicator. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't come to L.A. and do it live. But I could have, but you guys didn't want to pay for it.
So. Oh, easy. No, that's not the truth. That's no. And see, what Mike is referring to is, now I've got 30 seconds, is we have this really cool communication hub. And so we're communicating out across the country with different people, and Mike was in another part of the country communicating back. And that's what he's referring to there. Man, fly you to L.A. Then what do I use the hub for? The communication room. If everybody just comes to L.A.,
that's where everybody meets. That's where everybody meets and talks about.
No,
their
you
experience.
just want to go to BJ's and have steaks. I'll talk to you, Mike.
No, I'd like to go to Mastro's, actually.
Okay, Mastro's. There you go. Thank you so much, Mike. I got to get out of here. You're the absolute very best. And all of the links for Mike are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Follow him on Twitter. It's all there. His website, Mike Bara, Blogspot. It's all there. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, man. Love you. I'll see you soon.
Right back at you. Thank you so much. Mike Bara, everybody. All right, I got to get out of here, man. We took it to the very end. So that means I got to read these credits really, really quick tonight. Faded Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Jonas, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Thank you to John. Thank you to Mike Bara. The very best. This broadcast is only copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow Mike Bara at MikeBara33. Until tomorrow night, live broadcast from the Beverly Garland Hotel in Studio City, California with you, Pars. Our guest is Jason Martell. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Everybody be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.